Chapter 731. Vast Ancient World, an Unknown Forbidden Area. A white-clothed figure stood in the void as the four essences surged around her, forcefully opening the space passage. Without reaching the true realm, one's cultivation would be difficult to reach heaven's will. However, with 4 scrolls in knowing destiny, her foundation was unparalleled in the world. She forcefully opened the space passage that was about to close. The void swayed as streams of turbulence flashed past. As time passed, the space passage became more unstable and would disappear at any time. At this moment, 3 streams of light flew out and arrived at the last moment. With a loud bang, space closed and the ancient world shook. After a while, it gradually calmed down. Red clothes flashed as the two merged and their aura reached the peak. Ningchen immediately went forward, his body covered in snow as he activated his palm energy. The Azure Dragon's power of regeneration surged and forcefully poured into the body of the demonic cultivator. Ugh! With a groan, Xiazi's demonic aura surged out and clashed with the demonic aura, constantly resisting the Azure Dragon's power from entering her body. Ha! Seeing the demonic aura growing stronger, Ningchen shouted and pushed his body to the limit. Suddenly, wind and snow fell from the sky and turned 1,000 miles into silver. Not far away, Luo Fei clenched her fists tightly. She was so nervous that she did not dare to look away. Don't worry too much. Mu Qianshang looked forward and said calmly, Xiazi has a power that we don't know about protecting her. It won't be that easy. Hearing this, Luo Fei's pale hands loosened a little, but she still did not dare to be careless. Mu Qianshang did not say anything more. It was human nature to be worried. There were not many monsters like knowing destiny Marquis who could remain rational at all times. In front of the two, the wind and snow continued to swirl. In the huge wind and snow whirlpool, the demonic aura dyed the snowflakes black. In an instant, the snowflakes once again swallowed the demonic aura. In the stalemate, the Azure Dragon's power broke through the barrier and entered the demonic cultivator's body, quickly healing his damaged internal organs. Heart meridians, viscera meridians. Mending one injury after another, he reached his Dantian region's sea of qi. All of a sudden, an incomparably dark power appeared. Without any warning whatsoever, it exploded out. With a groan, the wind and snow scattered. Ningchen took a few steps back. The corner of his mouth was red. In the demonic aura, black feathers fluttered and the 12 wings of sin opened. A powerful demonic aura crazily surged, shaking the heaven and earth. The demonic cultivator opened his eyes. His eyes were as black as ink, but there was no fluctuation in them. He was like an ice-cold puppet, devoid of life. With the mad doomsday in hand, the demon cultivator's figure disappeared instantly. With a slash of the sword, the demon cultivator's demonic qi spread, and the heavens and earth withered. With a loud bang, the sword and saber collided. The purple devil qi surged violently. The ground under Ning Chen's feet collapsed. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. The demented demonic cultivator's sword was violent and merciless. Every move was sharp and deadly. The sound shook violently, reverberating throughout the desolate land. Swords and sabers collided, flames of war reached the heavens. Outside the battle, the two people recovered from their shock. Luo Fei revealed an anxious expression, wanting to step forward and separate them. No! Mu Qianshang moved and stood in front of him, saying in a deep voice, Xiazi's condition is not right, and Jiming Marquis did not ask for our help. Don't act rashly. But, Madame Luo Fei anxiously said, believe in them. They have endured so many trials and tribulations. It will be the same this time, Mu Qianshang said. In the battle ahead, kings and marquises exchanged blows. Above Nianqing, the power of faith surged. Every time the sword and saber collided, the purple devil qi and purple devil qi would be consumed. Sensing that his good friend's condition was not right, Ningchen did not say anything. The purple devil qi on his saber surged, using the power of faith to consume the dark energy surging out of the former sword. Samsara! After exchanging several moves, the demonic cultivator's sword stabbed into the ground. A black sword flow surged out from the ground and soared into the sky. unparalleled in the world. It was a familiar sword move. Ning Chen brandished Nian Qing. The purple devil chi turned into a saber light that fell from the sky. It was an extreme clash of moves. Amidst the waves of dust, Ning Chen leaped past. A white rainbow appeared, the soft sword locked onto the demonic sword in the former's hand. In close combat, the sword and saber collided even more fiercely. The saber light and sword shadows were so fast that no one dared to be distracted for even a moment. Both kings and marquises from Xia knew each other well. In a battle of weapons, it was hard to tell who was better. Rip! The saber and sword flashed. The king's robes and plain clothes were torn apart at the same time. Their heart veins were just a hair's breadth away. The two figures dodged. The saber and sword turned around and collided again. With a loud bang, the aftermath shook. The white rainbow in Ning Chen's hand swept out and wrapped around the former's arm that was holding the sword. Ha! The demonic cultivator's eyes did not change. He turned his palm and condensed demonic energy, slamming it towards the former's chest. Ning Chen held his saber horizontally. The purple devil chi surged as he blocked the demonic palm. At the moment of collision, there was no more move. Their foundation collided. Suddenly, 10 directions mountains sank, unable to bear the aftermath of the clash. The peerless foundation and the incomparably dark demonic energy attacked wave after wave. The corners of their mouths turned red at the same time. Their bodies were injured. I can't wait any longer. Otherwise, something will happen to the two of them. Outside the battle, Luo Fei lost her patience once again. Her figure flashed, wanting to enter the battle. Don't be rash. Mu Qianshang took a step forward and blocked in front of her again. He said in a deep voice, "You don't have the corresponding foundation. If you interfere now, you might be devoured by their strength." As he spoke, in the battle, the aftermath of the clash of foundations continued to spread outwards. The ground beneath their feet cracked inch by inch, crisscrossing with each other. There was not a single inch of undamaged ground. The most dangerous clash had rapidly consumed the two's cultivation. The demonic cultivator instinctively felt the danger and wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. In several breaths of time, the two's strength had been consumed by half. The demonic cultivator's aura gradually weakened. Ning Chen forcefully endured the surging demonic energy. The red light in his body brightened and his two bodies separated. The phoenix body flew out. Palm Chi flipped and yellow springs activated, sealing the former's Dantian Chi Si. A blood-red light entered the demonic cultivator's body. The divine restriction activated, temporarily sealing the terrifying dark energy in the latter's Chi Si. The demonic cultivator fell unconscious once again. Blood flowed from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. The backlash from the demonic energy entering his body had injured his meridians. When the battle ended, Mu Qianshang and Luo Fei immediately went forward, their faces filled with worry. "How are you?" Mu Qianshang asked with a dignified expression. "I'm fine. There is a terrifying dark energy in Zi's body. Once an external force enters, it will automatically erupt. I can only temporarily seal this energy, but it won't last for long." Ning Chen wearily said. "Dark energy?" Mu Qianshang frowned. He looked at the woman beside him and asked, "Luo Fei, do you know where this energy comes from?" Luo Fei helped Xia Zi up and gently shook her head. "This energy seems to have always existed. Zi can use a portion of it, but is unable to fully control it. Whether this is a good or bad thing is still unknown. Let's leave this place first. The death of that star domain venerable is likely to draw the attention of other true realm experts. In our current situation, it's not suitable for us to fight with such experts." Ning Chen said. The two of them nodded. Abyss Sin City. Cold winds blew. The ancient city that had experienced a great battle had been completely destroyed. It no longer had its former majesty. At this time, the void stirred and 4 extremely powerful figures walked out. When they saw the corpse on the ground, they were all shocked. How was this possible? The head of the Z-Way Starfield walked forward. Looking at the old man kneeling on the ground, a trace of gloominess flashed through his eyes. Immortal sword fiendish aura, one slash to the throat, said Shinji indifferently as he looked at the old man's wound. The murderer is already very clear. Dawn Moon Pavilion Master, are you still going to protect that child? Said the head of the Z-Way Starfield. The Dawn Moon Pavilion Master frowned. That guy was too impulsive this time. There's more than one remnant aura here. It would appear that Mo Gates' ninth son had other helpers, said the All-Heaven Starfield's head calmly. This matter cannot be left at this. Gather the other Exalts and return to the Hall of Exalts to discuss how to deal with that child, said the head of the Z-Way Starfield coldly. The All-Heaven Starfield's head nodded. The next moment, the void stirred and the two of them disappeared. Pavilion Master, that boy has provoked a great disaster this time, said Shinji indifferently as he looked around. Ning Chen is not someone who likes to cause trouble. There must be something here that we don't know about, said the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master. Shinji nodded. Actually, it's not hard to guess. Every true realm exalted that opens a spatial channel has the ability to send the people that pass through to any place. With my understanding of that old monster, he must have used this opportunity to attack Mo Gates' ninth son. I've already warned him time and time again not to provoke that child. Never would I have thought that something like this would still happen. This time, it's truly troublesome, sighed the Dawn Moon Pavilion Master. For the sake of my adopted daughter, I can choose to stand on that child's side. However, the other Exalts will definitely not leave this matter at that. You should think of a way to have Mo Gates' ninth son leave as soon as possible, said Shinji with a stern expression. That's impossible. The Dawn Moon Pavilion Master sighed again. For the sake of the time restriction, it's impossible for him to leave the ancient road. No one can persuade him to leave, not even your adopted daughter. Stubborn people are truly troublesome, said Shinji with a frown. Let's return to the Hall of Exalts first and see if there's still a chance to turn the situation around. Then, with a wave of her hand, she brought over the Luo Jia Starfield's leader who had died in battle and disappeared into the void. Shinji followed her and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In a majestic palace in an unknown space. Figures appeared one after another. Among the experts of various starfields, an aged figure was floating up and down. It was the Luo Jia Starfield's leader who had died long ago. The various Exalts were all silent as they looked at the figure before them. Thoughts were unceasingly flashing through their minds. That child's strength had truly surpassed their expectations. They had originally thought that he had only surpassed the youths of his generation. Although he was frightening, he did not pose much of a threat to them. Never would they have imagined that Mo Gates' ninth son would give them such a pleasant surprise today. Everyone, state your position, said the leader of the Z-Way Starfield to the various Exalts. Kill, said the All-Heaven Starfield's leader. Agree. Agree. Voices of agreement sounded throughout the palace. To them, Mo Gates' ninth son's performance today was no longer merely a matter of exclamation. Instead, it had become a threat that they could sense. If they did not deal with him strictly, where would their dignity as the rulers of a starfield be? The Dawn Moon Pavilion Master and Shinji looked at the various Exalts who were nodding their heads and sighed in their hearts. Now that things had come to this, it was useless for them to continue opposing. Chapter 732. The last half of the ancient starry sky path was a strange and desolate ancient world. Large stars floated in the starry sky, creating a magnificent scene. 1,000 miles away from the danger zone, the four of them appeared. The devil was still unconscious and had yet to wake up. Ning Chen looked at the surrounding desolate land and said, "Let's find a safe place for Z to recover first. Then we can discuss the future." The Fae nodded and continued on their way while supporting the unconscious Xiazi. Half a day later, on the nearest life planet, in a sparsely populated ancient city, the three of them found an abandoned temple to rest for the time being. The sky was gloomy and dark clouds covered the sky. Muffled thunder echoed, blocking out the sunlight. Not long after, heavy rain began to pour down, filling the sky with fog. In front of the ruined temple, two figures stood there, looking at the rain outside. It was unknown what they were thinking. Inside the temple, Lo Fei was silently taking care of the unconscious devil. The worry in her eyes was clearly visible. Knowing destiny, what are your plans for the future? After standing there for a long time, Mu Qianshang asked. After we finish walking this path, we must obtain the time restriction no matter what, calmly said Ningchen. That true realm expert's death will definitely bring about great trouble. You have to be careful, sternly said Mu Qianshang. I've implicated my good friend. Ningchen turned his head apologetically. Heh. Mu Qianshang faintly smiled. It's not the first time I've been implicated by you. I'm used to it. Knowing destiny, Marquis, where is the celebratory wine you promised? Ningchen smiled and waved his hand. A phoenix image appeared and jugs of wine flew out, landing in front of the two of them. Today, we won't leave until we're drunk. Ningchen tossed over a jug of wine. I'll keep you company. Mu Qianshang received the jug and straightforwardly agreed. The jugs collided with each other and a crisp sound rang out. The two of them smiled at each other and drank the wine in the jug. A burning sensation came from their throats. Unknowingly, it was no longer bitter. It was as if only this kind of wine could awaken the weary traveler. Knowing destiny, Marquis, how many years have you practiced martial arts? Asked Mu Qianshang. 33 years, replied Ningchen. 33 years. If you were an ordinary person, you would have already reached the end of the road, smiled Mu Qianshang. If I could start over again, I'd rather be ordinary. Ningchen took a sip of wine and replied. With a loud boom, the lightning illuminated the dusky heaven and earth. They were willing to be ordinary, but they were helpless against the autumn rain. Mu Qianshang extended his wine jug and clinked it with the former's, saying, The world-renowned Jiming Marquis is actually saying such unambitious words. How ironic is that? My good friend is joking. Ningchen replied softly and said, I've experienced too much along the way. The most unforgettable memory is still the time before I started learning martial arts. If you miss the past too much, your sword will become blunt. Knowing destiny, are you still unable to let go? Mu Qianshang sighed softly. I owe her this. Ningchen calmly said, She shouldn't have died. Knowing destiny, regardless of whether or not the ghost girl's death is your responsibility, it's been so many years. It's time to let go. You and I are both cultivators. We should know better than anyone how illusory the resurrection method is. Even if we obtain the time seal, how likely do you think the immortal peach tree will bear fruit, and how likely is the ghost girl to wake up? Knowing destiny, you're a human, not a cold stone. You can't hold on forever, said Mu Qianshang seriously. Soon. Ningchen looked at the person beside him and smiled, saying, Good friend, perhaps there really will be a miracle. Hearing this, Mu Qianshang sighed softly. The knowing destiny Marquis had always been rational. Why was he deceiving himself again and again on this matter, refusing to wake up? Ugh! Suddenly, a painful groan rang out from within the temple. Immediately, demonic qi soared into the sky and a huge demonic pillar pierced through heaven and earth. A terrifying pressure shook the world. In the next moment, the demonic cultivator opened his eyes amidst the black feathers that filled the sky. His divine sense surged out like a tide. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and looked at the figure within the demonic qi. His aura was faintly discernible as he prepared to attack at any moment. Looking at each other, their eyes gradually calmed down. The demonic cultivator landed on the ground, his injuries completely healed. Ningchen and Mu Qianshang's expression sank. It was this dark aura again. Was its existence a blessing or a curse? The demonic cultivator walked forward and calmly said, Wine. Ningchen withdrew his divine sense and waved his right hand. A jug of wine flew towards the former. Xiazi received the jug and opened the seal. He took a sip and said indifferently, I know what you're worried about. At least until now, this energy hasn't shown any abnormalities. Before it completely erupts, I'll think of a way to refine it. Ningchen nodded and suppressed the worry in his heart, saying, Since you've woken up, I can rest assured. Once the rain stops tomorrow, we'll go our separate ways. Not far away, Luo Fei frowned and said, Knowing destiny, Marquis, can we not go together? Ningchen shook his head, saying, No, I'll bring a lot of trouble if I go with you. Soon, more than one true realm expert will come. There's no need to take this risk together. How can you deal with a true realm expert's pursuit alone? One more person means one more power. Do you think we'll care about this little bit of trouble? Luo Fei said solemnly. Say no more. Xia Zi raised his hand and interrupted the former. He calmly looked at the person in front of him, saying, knowing destiny Marquis, if something happens to you, I'll kill all the true realm experts in sky beyond heaven to accompany you in death. Ningchen smiled, saying, good friend, you should know that I'm most afraid of death. How can I put myself in danger? Two lunatics. Mu Qianshang mocked without holding back. Xia Zi didn't say much. He extended his wine jug and looked at the two. Bang! The 3 wine jugs clinked. Although they often mocked each other and even disliked each other, they never forgot the precious memories of going through life and death together. Life was ordinary, but to be able to entrust one's life to a friend was worth it. Luo Fei looked at the 3 and sighed. She really didn't understand the feelings of men. She never agreed, but was willing to give up her life for them. She didn't want to go with them, but was willing to kill the world for them. A stormy night, a silent night. Only the sound of wine jugs clinking could be heard. When the sky was about to brighten, Suyi got up and left without even saying goodbye. Knowing destiny Marquis left. Mu Qianshang glanced at the two and didn't stay any longer. Xia Zi, don't lose to yourself. With that, Bai disappeared into the morning fog, leaving no trace behind. In front of the ruined temple, Xia Zi opened his eyes. His dark and cold eyes still didn't show any emotion, but he remembered every word. Demons were emotionless, but not ignorant. They could distinguish and see clearly. Perhaps demons were paranoid, but Xia Zi was very clear that if there were still people he could trust in this world, it was undoubtedly these friends that he had entrusted his life to. Luo Fei, let's go. A moment later, Xia Zi came back to his senses. Luo Fei softly nodded. At the same time, in the ruins of Abyss Sin, the void split open and 3 powerful figures walked out. Each one of them had a cultivation base no weaker than the previous Luo Jia Starfield's manager. The 3 of them appeared at the same time, and their terrifying pressure connected. The leader of the 3 took half a step forward and condensed Yuan with a flip of his palm. Violet light shook, and a passage between the 2 worlds opened. In an instant, the 3 of them entered the vast ancient world. They're here. Ningchen stopped in the wilderness. He narrowed his eyes when he sensed the auras from the distance. They had really come quickly. It seemed these old monsters had made up their minds to eliminate him. Venerate In Qiong, it's up to you, said the manager of the Z-Way Starfield. Yes. Venerate In Qiong stepped forward. His body shone brightly as he used his supreme cultivation base to derive the secrets of the heavens, searching for the whereabouts of Mo Gate's 9 sons. His heavenly divination technique shook heaven and earth. Winds and clouds churned as he traced the latter's aura. Strange. After a long time, Venerate In Qiong stopped. He frowned and said, I can't find the whereabouts of Mo Gate's 9th son. It seems he's been concealed by something. There's actually such a thing? A strange light flashed through the eyes of the Z-Way Starfield's manager. He said, although there are treasures capable of concealing auras, with your ability, ordinary treasures would not be able to hide from your search. There are only 2 possibilities. The All-Heaven Starfield's manager's expression turned cold. He said, either there's someone of the same level helping Mo Gate's 9th son conceal his aura, or he possesses a treasure that even we don't know about. The Z-Way Starfield's manager nodded. After pondering for a moment, he said, Venerate In Qiong, let's issue the kill order. Wouldn't it be counterproductive to alert the enemy? Asked Venerate In Qiong. The Z-Way Starfield's manager shook his head. That child is no ordinary person. He must have already guessed that we would come. There's no such thing as alerting the enemy. Spread the kill order throughout the second half of the ancient road. Even if we can't force him to show himself, we'll make it difficult for him to move. Venerate In Qiong nodded. He flipped his hand seals, and rays of light soared into the sky. They turned into streams of light that rushed to every corner of the ancient road. In an instant, a dignified voice rang out in the ears of countless young geniuses. The ninth son of Mo Gate was wanted. The ancient road was shaken. The young geniuses were unable to conceal their shock. This was the first time in thousands of years that so many starfields had jointly issued a kill order for someone. Young master. In an unfamiliar region, worry flashed through Ruoshi's eyes. She did not understand what had happened. Not far away, in front of a heavenly pillar, a woman in a dark red dress trembled. Unable to speak, she let out a furious snort. With a flip of her hand, she shattered the heavenly pillar in front of her. Behind her, many young geniuses were shocked. They hastily retreated to avoid the falling rocks. What's wrong with the Red King? Why is she so angry? Thousands of meters away, the young geniuses looked at the destroyed heavenly pillar with puzzlement. In the boundless wilderness, Ning Qin sneered when he heard the voice coming from the horizon. The kill order of the ancient road? He wanted to see how they could kill him. He took a few steps forward. In the wind and snow, a light flashed. He walked out in plain clothes with a white fan. His appearance and aura had completely changed. There was no longer any resemblance between them. On the second floor of the Dawn Moon Chang, the master of the Dawn Moon Tower looked at the light scroll in her hand. The Chaos Scroll? Jiming Marquis, I'll wait for the day when your name shakes the starry sky. Chapter 733. In the last part of the ancient road to the ancient battlefield in the vast ancient world, the competition between geniuses had finally reached its climax. Two kings were fighting in the wilderness. Divine furnaces were shining, and saber lights were shaking the world. The fight for the top attracted the attention of countless young experts. The woman in the crimson dress had strange footsteps. Her body was surrounded by flames. As she moved, the king's ring on her hand shone brightly. On the other hand, the saber wielder was agile. His saber light pierced through the clouds, making it difficult to distinguish. After exchanging hundreds of moves, it was difficult to determine the victor. The battle for the king was extremely intense. The young experts watching the battle couldn't help but stare. 100 miles to the west of the battle, a young man in black and purple stood on a mountain peak, quietly watching the battle. "Jiushi, who do you think will win?" asked the man in purple, seeing the stalemate. "The Red King," said Yen Jiushi calmly. "Oh, you're so sure," said the man in purple calmly. "Last time, the god's bloodline was saved by this woman. I exchanged a move with her, so I know what she's capable of," said Yen Jiushi calmly. "To be able to save someone from your hands, it seems that this woman's strength isn't just what it's shown so far," said the man in purple, slightly surprised. "She's more skilled with the sword. Let's see if this saber wielder can force her to use her true strength," said Yen Jiushi. "The swordsmen who appeared along the way are all quite strong. The experts of this world aren't as weak as we thought," said the man in purple. "Actually, there's something else that I'm more concerned about," said Yen Jiushi seriously. "Oh." The man in purple looked surprised. "What is it?" Before he finished speaking, the battle on the mountain peak in the distance finally changed. The Red King didn't want to fight for a long time. She waved her hand and the king's ring shone brightly. A crimson sword fell. The moment it fell into her hand, sword intent radiated. "It's here," said Yen Jiushi. He looked serious. At the same time, on another mountain peak, a plain-clothed figure with a white fan appeared. Looking at the battle, a gentle smile appeared in her eyes. This girl had grown to such a level. With a boom, the saber and sword collided. Chi waves rolled. In the void above, the crimson furnace shone even brighter. With the support of the king's weapon and the king's ring, the sword power surged and forced the king in front of her away. Tick-tock. Amid the dust, the sound of blood dripping could be heard. Blood dripped from the saber-wielding hand of the Saber King, dyeing the ground red. "His skills are inferior, there won't be any more surprises in this battle." On the western peak, Yen Jiushi said slowly, "The Saber Master is not bad, but the Red King is indeed stronger." "What did you want to say just now?" The purple-clothed man asked. "This woman's sword is somewhat similar to the ninth son of Mo Gate, who fought against me in the past," said Yen Jiushi calmly. "Is that true?" The purple-robed man was surprised. A moment later, The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Then the next target will be her. If this woman is really related to Mo Gates' ninth disciple, it can be considered an unexpected gain. Sure. Yen Jiushi nodded. Do you need my help? The purple-robed man asked. No need. I alone am enough to deal with these so-called kings, Yen Jiushi said indifferently. We can't be careless. After all, the leaders of those star regions have their eyes on us. Once our identities are exposed, it'll be very troublesome, warned the violet-clothed man. I'll be careful. Yen Jiushi nodded. As the two of them chatted, the battle on the mountain peak reached its final moment. The Red King's figure flickered, and thousands of swords converged into one. A peak sword condensed with the might of a king item and a king's ring broke through the air. When the saber user received the sword, an earth-shaking collision resounded. The peak collapsed in response, and the shock waves shattered it. The saber master was sent flying, his body dyed red. He smashed into the bottom of the mountain. The battle between kings had been lost on the verge of success. The Red King's mouth leaked a trace of blood. He had also been injured by the battle's shockwaves. The Hall of Venerables was reflecting the battle between kings from an endless distance away. Numerous star regions' venerables stood in the air, carefully watching this peak battle of the younger generation. This Red King is a promising talent. If any of you lack a direct disciple, you can take him in, said Shinji. For him to have such accomplishments, how could he not have a master? He still hasn't reached the point where we have to fight over him. Let's not talk about this for now. How is the search for Mo Gates' ninth son going? Has there been any progress? Asked the Spirit Void Starfield's leader. There's been no news. It's as if that child has disappeared from the ancient road, said the All-Heaven Starfield's leader. Appearances can be changed through a secret technique, but aura is difficult to conceal. Even with your abilities, you can't sense his aura? Asked the Spirit Void Starfield's leader. Venerable Ing Cheong shook his head. It's very possible that Mo Gates' ninth son has a treasure that conceals his aura. I've already tried several times, but any information about him has been concealed. It's very difficult to see. His name is no longer on the heavenly pillar. Finding him now will not be easy, said the All-Heaven Starfield's leader. He seems to have a maid with him. He can conceal his aura, but that maid shouldn't have that ability, said the Spirit Void Starfield's leader. I've been paying attention for a long time. That maid is not with him, said Venerable Ing Cheong calmly. Desperate times call for desperate measures, reminded the Spirit Void Starfield's leader. Hearing that, the Exalts fell silent. Although they had thought about it, none of them were willing to bear such an evil reputation. You are all leaders of your respective starfields. If you make things difficult for a little girl, isn't that going too far? Said the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master with a cold expression. As long as she tells us the whereabouts of Mo Gates' ninth son, I believe you Exalts will not make things difficult for her. Pavilion Master, could it be that you want to protect Mo Gates' ninth son? Asked the Spirit Void Starfield's leader coldly. Venerable Spirit Void, are you doubting me? Asked the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master as killing intent flashed through her eyes. Pavilion Master, you know better than anyone what the truth is, said the Spirit Void Starfield's leader without the slightest fear. The two of you, don't let such a small matter affect your relationship. The matter of Mo Gates' ninth son has already been handled by Ing Cheong and the All-Heaven Starfield. There's no need for us to worry about it, interrupted the Heavenly Mist Starfield's leader. Venerable Ing Cheong frowned slightly. With their status, it was indeed inappropriate for them to make things difficult for a little girl. However, other than that, they didn't seem to have any better ideas. Keep an eye on this girl for a few more days. If Mo Gates' ninth son still doesn't show himself, then take action, said the Z-Way Starfield's leader indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, the person in charge of the Z-Way Star Zone disappeared. Venerable Ing Cheong sighed softly and didn't stay any longer. His figure gradually faded away. After the discussion ended, the Exalts left one after another. Shinji looked at the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master and sternly asked, "What are your plans? You're not really planning on falling out with those old monsters over this child, are you?" "It hasn't reached that point yet," said the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master indifferently. Shenji's expression changed. Do you think Mo Gates' ninth son will have a chance to turn things around this time? I don't know if there will be a chance to turn things around, but this child won't die so easily. Otherwise, he wouldn't have reached this point. Shenji, if there really is a miracle of a mortal becoming an immortal, it will definitely be this child, said the Dawn Moon Pavilion's master calmly. Oh, since the pavilion master says so, then this king will wait for the day this child leaps over the dragon gate, replied Shenji with a slight smile. On the ancient starry sky road, the battle between the two kings had ended, but the wind and clouds still hadn't calmed down. An oppressive aura filled the ancient road. The final competition had arrived. Everyone knew that only one person could reach the ancient battlefield in the end. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. No one could stand side by side. As strong as the 9 kings were, only one person could survive in the end. The other 8 would undoubtedly be eliminated. In the strange atmosphere, the number of companions among the many young powerhouses became fewer and fewer. Everyone knew that no one could be trusted now. On the ancient road, the Red King walked alone. At this moment, a beautiful woman caught up with him and whispered, "Miss Red King, my name is Ruashi." The Red King was startled and couldn't react for a moment. "Miss Red King, can we travel together?" Ruashi chuckled and asked again. A moment later, Hongwulei came back to her senses. A happy smile appeared on her delicate face. She gestured a few times with her hands and asked about the former situation. "I'm fine. I just got separated from the Lord." "Wulei, you're one of the 9 kings now. You've changed a lot," Ruashi smiled. Hongwulei was a little embarrassed and gently shook her head. "Okay, let's stop joking. The Lord might be in trouble right now. We have to find him quickly," Ruashi said seriously. Hongwulei nodded. Thinking for a moment, she gestured a few times and asked how to find him. "I planted a goo in the Lord's body. But he has the chaos volume on him right now, so I can't sense it too clearly. We can only slowly find him," Ruashi whispered. Hearing this, Hongwulei's expression became strange. "Goo, isn't that a harmful thing? Don't think too much. How could I harm the Lord? Let's go quickly. The sooner we find the Lord, the sooner we can be at ease," Ruashi urged. Hongwulei nodded again and stepped forward. Not long after the two left, evil Qi surged behind them and a black-robed figure appeared. In an instant he disappeared again. Strange. In the distance, Ji Yuqing appeared. Looking at the remnant evil Qi in the void, she frowned slightly. This evil Qi was almost exactly the same as the one that attacked her that day. Could it be Mo Gates' 9th son? Is he going to attack the Red King this time? Thinking of this, Ji Yuqing took a step forward and quickly followed. In the distance, above the void, the 3 leaders of the star regions looked at this scene with astonishment on their faces. The maid of Mo Gates' 9th son seemed to be acquainted with the Red King. But why would the other 2 kings also appear here? Was it a coincidence? The Ji family's daughter had a special status. If something happened to her on the ancient road, it would be troublesome. Continue to follow that woman. Also, do not let Ji Yuqing get involved, the Z-Way Starfield's manager said. Understood. Reverend In Cheong nodded. If that woman really is acquainted with the Red King, then once we attack, the Red King will very likely intervene. I'm afraid those 2 following behind us won't be safe, warned the All-Heaven Starfield's manager. As long as Ji Yuqing is not among them, it doesn't matter whether the others live or die, said the Z-Way Starfield's manager coldly. Chapter 734. In the second half of the ancient road, the flames of war rose everywhere. Kings fought and geniuses competed. Everywhere was filled with smoke. Among the flames, Hongwulei pulled Ruashi out, blood dripping from his sword. The battle never stopped for a moment. Countless powerhouses joined forces to eliminate the strongest opponent on the ancient road. Wulei go east. Ruashi sensed the surrounding aura and reminded him. Hongwulei nodded and slashed his sword to open the path. His figure rushed out and rushed toward the former. Chase. In front of everyone, for young men's eyes were cold as they said in a deep voice. After the order was given, several figures flashed and continued to chase. No need to chase. Before the voice fell, a white-clothed figure walked out in front of everyone. He had a white fan and a silk headband. His face was calm, without the slightest threat. Looking at the man who appeared in front of them out of thin air, everyone's expression froze. When did this person come? Who are you? One of the four said in a deep voice. White Jade Jing, the white-clothed figure said calmly. Get out of the way or die. Another person said. No need for threats. Let's start. The white-clothed figure said indifferently. The clear sunly flame in his hand rose. A moment later, he moved and started the battle. With a bang, a wave of fire soared into the sky. After exchanging blows, the four of them took half a step back. Their blood chi violently surged. This shocking scene was unbelievable. In the next moment, the white fan turned and the clear sunly flame spread, breaking the four's joint attack. Blood splashed. The battle was not on the same level. The fan's blade slashed across, threatening to kill. Of the four, one died and three were injured. The falling vermilion was the cruel reflection of the truth. The three were shocked. They immediately raised their Zhenyuan and fought with all their strength. Kill! With a command, the young powerhouses outside the battle joined the battle. They joined forces to besiege the people blocking the road. Remnant wind passing shadow. The white-clothed figure's clear sunly flame soared into the sky. The killing light of the fan shone brightly. The white-clothed figure disappeared in an instant. When they came back to their senses, there was a bone-chilling silence. Ugh! Muffled groans sounded in unison. A waterfall of blood gushed into the sky. Dozens of figures with their throats cut fell to the ground. Have a good trip on the road to the Yellow Springs. Suyi waved her hand to scatter the blood on her fan. Then she turned and left. 300 miles away, night fell. In the forest, a bonfire danced. In front of the bonfire, two women sat quietly, not saying a word. After a long time, Ruoshi looked up at the woman in front of her and whispered, "Why don't we split up?" Hong Wulei was startled. He shook his head gently and refused the former's request. Since they had met before they found the young master, they would live and die together. Now that the ancient road had entered its darkest period, no one could guarantee their survival. Her young noble had given her a new lease of life, so no matter what, she couldn't leave Ruoshi alone. In the distance, three powerful illusory figures stood tall. They had followed him all the way here, quietly waiting for Mo Gate's ninth disciple to appear. It seems that the Red King and the ninth son of the Mahist sect are old acquaintances. For him to risk his life to protect his maid is truly extraordinary, said the Z-Way Star Zone's manager. Are we to attack? Asked the All-Heaven Starfield's head. Not yet. Venerated Ing Cheong shook his head and reminded, the Ji family's daughter has always been paying attention to the Red King's whereabouts. She has secretly helped him several times. Once we attack, she will very likely intervene. Just temporarily stop her. Although the Ji family can't be easily provoked, as long as nothing happens to Ji Yuqing, the Ji family won't make a big fuss over such a small matter, said the All-Heaven Starfield's manager. There's no need for that. The Z-Way Star Zone's manager interrupted. Our target is Mo Gate's ninth disciple. Now that the ancient road has entered its final stage, no one can guarantee its safety. As long as Mo Gate's ninth disciple really cares about this woman, he will definitely appear. Venerated Ing Cheong suddenly frowned. He flipped his hands and looked at the battle 300 miles away from the two women. How is this possible? Venerated Ing Cheong waved his hand and the battle appeared in front of them. What entered their eyes was a vermilion ground. The leaving silhouette was abnormally powerful. Strange, who is that person? Asked the All-Heaven Starfield. I've never seen him before. With his strength, he's not inferior to King Mo Gate's ninth disciple. Venerated Ing Cheong replied. Since the second half of the ancient road had begun, some hidden experts had gradually revealed themselves. Now, several king-level experts had appeared. The ancient battlefield can only be opened by the heavenly chosen. It's about time for him to appear, said the Z-Way Star Zone's manager. Who could it be? King Mo Gate's ninth disciple? Hopefully, nothing will happen to him in this chaotic situation, said the All-Heaven Starfield's manager with a grave expression. Since he's the heavenly chosen, he won't die so easily. According to the heavenly signs, the ancient battlefield will reopen in this era. We only need to wait. The only thing we need to pay attention to is not to let Mo Gates' ninth disciple destroy the entire ancient road, said venerated Ing Cheong. Venerable Ing Cheong said in a deep voice. Amongst the younger generation experts, only the ninth disciple of Mo Gate possessed strength that was absolutely above everyone else. Such a variable was something that they should be wary of. The All-Heaven Starfield's manager was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Say, could Mo Gates' ninth disciple be the heavenly chosen? Absolutely impossible." The Z-Way Star Zone's manager shook his head. Mo Gates' ninth disciple's karma is extremely terrifying. From this, it can be seen what kind of killing he has done. He is a great sinner and is abandoned by the heavens. He will never be chosen. It's truly a miracle that he's still alive today, said venerated Ing Cheong. Disregarding grudges and grudges, that child's tenacity far surpasses that of ordinary people. If he can break through the heavenly fate of mortals, his future will be limitless. Unfortunately, the will of the heavens is the will of the heavens. He has obtained 2 immortal swords and a divine spirit source. His attainments in the sword have reached the pinnacle. His battle power is comparable to the peak of the corporeal realm, or even the true realm. Yet he is still unable to step into the immortal realm. To those geniuses with extraordinary talent, this step is not too difficult. But to him, it's an insurmountable moat, said the Z-Way Star Zone's manager calmly. The heavenly Tao is fair. If he's unsuitable, then he's unsuitable. If he insists on going against the heavens, then he'll have to taste his own bitter consequences, said the All-Heaven Starfield's manager coldly. As the 3 of them conversed, an evil aura filled the distant mountain forest. The bonfire was immediately extinguished. The sudden killing intent caused Hong Wulei and Ruo Shi's expressions to change. It was as if they had fallen into ice, and they felt chills all over their bodies. Hong Wulei came back to his senses and immediately rushed into the depths of the mountain forest with Ruo Shi without hesitation. You can't escape. Yen Jiosher, dressed in black, walked out from the evil aura. His killing intent was biting cold, and it shook the heavens and the earth. Not far away, Jiuqing felt the evil aura in front of her. Her expression froze, and she immediately rushed forward. God's bloodline, it's not your turn yet. Wait for a while. As he spoke, a figure in purple appeared with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. He blocked the path ahead. Seeing this, Jiuqing's expression sank. This is troublesome. In the mountain forest, Yen Jiosher blocked the path. His murderous aura was far more oppressive than the experts of the younger generation. Seeing that the path ahead was blocked, Hong Wulei let out a light shout. His true yuan rose from his body. Suddenly, the king weapon rose into the sky. A blood-red furnace floated between heaven and earth. Waves of fire surged out and drowned the mountain forest. The king weapon appeared, and the king's ring responded. The red light shone brightly, illuminating the night. The next moment, the sword fell into Hong Wulei's hand. The sword moved and broke through the sky. I hate people who use swords the most in my life. Yen Jiosher snorted coldly. He turned his palm and gathered his evil yuan. Without dodging, he blocked the former sword. In the confrontation between sword and palm, Hong Wulei's expression became more and more heavy. He didn't want to fight for a long time. The fire on his sword was extremely strong. He wanted to cut open a way out. Fight with your life? You are not qualified. Yen Jiosher took half a step forward. Black chi rolled around his body. His violent evil yuan soared into the sky, shaking 1,000 miles. The 2 moves collided, and a tragic collision occurred. The aftermath of the impact sent Hong Wulei's figure flying more than 10 feet away. The corner of his mouth was overflowing with blood. Dozens of miles away, the white-clothed figure who had been paying attention to the battle frowned. Red light emerged from her body and condensed into a shape. Her appearance and aura changed. In an instant, Hong Wulei appeared in the battle. Without saying a word, she turned her palm and gathered her evil yuan. With a bang, she sent both of them out of the battle. Before she could speak, she looked at Hong Wulei's back with excitement in her eyes. Although her appearance and aura had changed, the Love Gu's reaction would never be wrong. Reckless. Seeing someone blocking the way, Yan Jioshi's expression turned cold. He gathered evil yuan in his palm and rushed toward the former. At the same time, in the distant void, honored sage Ing Qiong narrowed his eyes and said, "He has appeared. This person is, go ahead." The Z-Way Starfield's manager nodded. It was indeed that child. Although he had deliberately concealed his aura, they could still feel a trace of familiarity with their cultivation. I thought he would hide for a while longer. It seems that I have overestimated him. This time, let me do it. The All Heavens Starfield's manager sneered. He took a step forward and rushed forward. "Are we not going to help?" asked honored sage Ing Qiong. "No need. Last time, it was because someone helped that honored Luo Jia died in battle. Now there is only Mo Gate's 9th son." The All Heavens Starfield's manager replied. In the mountain forest, the phoenix body blocked Yan Jioshu. The battle situation changed again. A terrifying aura descended from the sky, covering the sky and moon. The all-heaven-honored sage walked out from the clouds. Without saying a word, the wind and clouds turned into a palm and slammed down. True realm. Seeing the figure that appeared in the sky, Yan Jioshu narrowed his eyes. He no longer continued to fight and quickly retreated. Mo Gate's 9th son, you won't be able to escape even if you grow wings. The all-heaven-honored sage's figure landed and looked at the young man before him coldly. "You were able to recognize me even like this." "Admirable," said Ning Qin indifferently. Red light rose from his body and his appearance and aura returned to normal. "Pay with your life for honored Luo Jia." After saying that, the all-heaven-honored sage's figure rushed out. A golden sword appeared in his hand. It was 3 feet long and had 4 edges. The sword flickered with golden light. It was the first time the world had seen such a strange divine weapon. Ning Qin waved his hand and Zhu Xian appeared. Baleful aura lingered as the battle began. Clanging sounds of swords rang out. The immortal sword met with the strange sword. Chapter 735. In the forest at night, a battle broke out at the peak. The phoenix body met the real realm. The battle of immortal swords and unorthodox weapons appeared for the first time in the human world. The sharpness of the god of sharpness in all 4 directions was sharp and fierce in its attacks. It was powerful and deadly. Ning Chen's footsteps spun, and his immortal sword met the attack head-on. Boundless baleful qi swirled around him. His sword moved at extreme speed, and under the night sky, it was hard to distinguish. In the blink of an eye, over 100 moves had been exchanged. Hong Yi's sword moved faster and faster. The man and the sword disappeared, leaving only the flashing red light between heaven and earth. To be so capable at such a young age, Luo Jia's death was not unjust. The all heavens venerate snorted coldly. The divine blade in his hand glowed brightly, and golden blades separated from the divine blade and circled around him to block the sword light. With a clang, Zhu Xian shook the divine sharpness. Chaotic sword qi vibrated out, and the golden sword turned into streaks of golden light that swept toward the former. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He took a step back and retreated 300 meters. However, the sword followed him like a shadow and he couldn't avoid it. With a ci-la sound, vermilion splashed out. A golden edge brushed past his shoulder, bringing with it a waterfall of dazzling blood. The all heavens are stronger than they were 100 years ago, Ing Qiong the Venerable said from afar. Although the 9th son of the Mahist sect has amazing attainments in the way of the sword, he has only been cultivating for a short period of time. His foundation is ordinary. Even if he has the support of the immortal sword, the chances of him defeating the all heavens is less than 1 in 100, said the manager of the Z-Way Star Zone. Venerable Ing Qiong nodded and said, "After this battle, it's time to take back the immortal trapping sword. The last time I lent it out, that old fellow was extremely dissatisfied." While the two of them were talking, the battle situation in the distance changed again. Red light filled the sky as the immortal entrapment was born. Boundless killing intent surged and spread hundreds of miles away. With the support of the two swords, the battle prowess of the phoenix body became even stronger. Her black hair turned red, and she stood tall in the divine realm. With a bang, the sword light shook the heavens and the earth. Below the two of them, the mountain collapsed. The cracks continued to extend, reaching thousands of feet below. At the bottom of the mountain, the earth flame rocks tumbled. Scorching heat waves rushed out along with the cracks, and the forest within 100 miles instantly turned into a sea of fire. Seeing this, the two swords in Ning Chen's hands became extremely powerful. They absorbed the primordial fire power between heaven and earth and reproduced the martial arts of the heavenly tomes. 9 suns burning the heavens. The divine suns that rose into the sky lit up the night sky. The void rumbled as huge cracks appeared. In the next moment, the 9 suns turned into swords that fell from the sky. The all-heavens venerate frowned slightly as he took a step forward to avoid the sword streams. After 100 steps, the golden light around him regained its sharpness, and he slashed out with his sword. The sword moves collided with each other, creating a terrifying scene as if the sky was collapsing and the earth was caving in. The divine sharp sword light broke through the endless sword flow and swept forward. Skybreaker! Ning Chen waved the Zhu Xian sword in his hand. The sword cut through the air and scattered the remaining force. The world's shocking sword incantation was the only true realm venerable on the sword. They fought until the heavens fell and the earth fell. 100 li, 1,000 li, and a sandstorm raged. In the distance, the purple-robed man in front of Ji Yuqing left. He didn't want to face the true realm experts of the various starfields. Outside of the battlefield, Ji Yuqing was observing the battle quietly. She narrowed her eyes. Something was not right. Although the person who tried to kill her back then looked the same, his aura and moves were different from the person in front of her. Was it a disguise, or was someone trying to frame him? Just which one was the true 9th disciple of Mo Gate? Dragon Sparrow Transformation. The battle was white-hot. The azure dragon coiled around and broke through the air, borrowing its strength. The vermilion bird followed behind, its sword intent rumbling and its divine might shocking the world. The all-heavens venerate scattered the azure dragon sword Qi with a flip of his palm. His figure flashed forward, and the 4 divine sharp swords pierced through the vermilion bird's body. Black Tortoise Defense. The Zhu Xian sword soared through the sky and the black tortoise appeared. It had an absolute defense and blocked the divine sharp swords. Too weak. The swords collided and the black tortoise collapsed. In an instant, the all-heavens venerate arrived before him. His sword pierced through the wind and clouds like lightning, stabbing towards the former's heart. At the moment of crisis, the immortal trapping sword soared. Its red light flourished and blocked the divine sharp swords. A huge force came and a smear of red splattered. His red clothes were dyed with blood, making him look even redder. Ning Chen didn't seem to feel it. He held his sword even tighter. His blood didn't stop flowing, and neither did the sword's momentum. The clanging of swords in the night sky didn't stop for even a moment. The killing light under the moonlight was dazzling and bleak as it cut open bottomless ravines. Although there was a gap in the foundation of the top-level sword technique, with the help of the immortal sword, the battle was barely in a stalemate. The knowing destiny state cultivator was at a disadvantage. His injuries gradually accumulated. Blood flowed from the hand holding the sword. It was never easy to go against the heavens and kill the immortal sword. In the distance, the 2-star region venerates watched the battle quietly. Neither of them intervened. It was not a glorious thing to attack a junior. If they joined forces again, it would be beneath their status as venerates of a region. In the stalemate, although the all-heavens venerates had the upper hand, they couldn't completely suppress the opponent. Facing the knowing destiny state cultivator with the help of the immortal sword, they didn't dare to be distracted for a moment. This boy's attainments in the sword are really terrifying. His talent is ordinary, but he can find a way to improve his strength. It's really rare. If our disciples had such great perseverance, we wouldn't have to worry about the prosperity of our sect. Ing Qiong venerates sighed softly. When the world is prosperous, There must be some monstrous powerhouses. However, this whetstone is too much better than the younger generation. Otherwise, it would be a pity to kill him like this, the Ziwei Star region manager said calmly. Ing Qiong Venerate nodded. If this boy's strength wasn't so shocking, he would indeed be the best whetstone. No matter how monstrous a talent was, he still needed opponents and training in the process of growth. Their sect didn't lack geniuses. What they lacked were geniuses who could grow after experiencing hardships. However, when a whetstone was hard enough to easily break a sword, there was no need for it to exist. In the forest at night, fire burned the city walls. Earth fire surged and waves of heat surged. All that could be seen was scorched earth. At the last moment of the battle, the two people had pushed their cultivation to the limit. Every move they made had the power to destroy the world. On the other side of the battle, Ji Yuqing watched this amazing battle. She couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. It was hard to believe that there was someone in the younger generation who was so terrifyingly powerful. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it. A true realm expert was already the ruler of a region. In an era where fourth realm experts didn't appear, true realm experts were the strongest in this world. The younger generation had only cultivated for a short period of time. It was harder than ascending the heavens to fight a true realm expert who had lived for countless years. Nirvana. In the battle, rumbling soared intense soared into the sky. The final move was about to arrive. Heaven and earth were swords. It was a magnificent scene. Hong Yi stepped forward and leaped into the sky. Immortal execution reflected the moon. Rays of sword light crisscrossed and fell from the sky. Seeing this, the Venerate sneered. Divine Edge spun rapidly. He took a step forward and rushed forward to meet the swords. The final move collided. Broken swords filled the eyes. With a bang, the Divine Edge broke through Nirvana and pierced through his body. Arg! A muffled groan sounded. Scarlet blood flowed out from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. He waved Immortal Execution and forcefully counterattacked. I admire you for being able to fight with me until now. However, it's over. Taking the initiative, the Venerate flipped his palm and pushed away the immortal sword. His palm condensed vast origin energy and a powerful palm force slammed into Ning Chen's chest. Blood splattered and dyed the sky red. Hong Yi flew out. The mountain shook and the earth shook as she fell down the mountain. Earth fire surged and a heat wave soared into the sky, instantly engulfing Hong Yi. Not good. The Venerate's expression changed slightly. He stepped forward and rushed down the mountain. However, his hesitation was too late. Under the mountain, the heavily injured and dying Knowing Destiny fell into the lava and disappeared in an instant. In front of the earth fire, the Venerate stopped and looked at Mo Gate's ninth disciple who was swallowed by the lava. His expression sank. He had been careless. The battle was over. In the distance, two auras flashed. They came forward and asked, "Where are the immortal swords?" They fell into the earth fire due to a moment of carelessness, the Venerate said. This is troublesome. Ing Qiong frowned. This world is special. The earth fire below extends for hundreds of thousands of miles and is bottomless. It won't be easy to find the two immortal swords. Our cultivation bodies are consumed too quickly in the earth fire. We can't hold on for too long. Call Venerate Ling Su over. His cultivation body is of the fire attribute, so he should be able to do the job, the Ziwei Star Zone's manager suggested. That's the only way. The Venerate nodded. Let's leave first, said the man in charge of the Ziwei Star Zone. Then he disappeared into the night. Ing Qiong and the other two Venerates followed and left together. Not long after the three left, a purple light flashed and Ji Yuqing arrived. She frowned as she looked at the surging lava below. After standing there for a moment, Ji Yuqing turned and left. The night deepened and a cold wind blew. It was a desolate scene. The mountain forest that was riddled with holes finally calmed down. Su Yi walked over with a white fan and a silk scarf. Her expression was as calm as water. At this moment, the earth fire surged and specks of red light flew out and entered Su Yi's body. I'll leave the rest to you. Su Yi nodded and then walked away. Hundreds of miles away, Ji Yuqing walked faster and faster. She couldn't hide the worry on her perfect face. Before that Star Zone Venerate had attacked, she had clearly sensed that the Red King was in danger. If the one who had died just now was the 9th son of Mo Gate, then the person who had appeared to kill the Red King and attacked her was intentionally trying to frame her. But when did the ancient path have so many powerful experts? In other words, if the person who had attacked her was the 9th son of Mo Gate, then the expert who had died just now was someone else. After thinking for a long time, Ji Yuqing still couldn't figure it out. She suddenly stopped and looked to the east, frowning. There really was no end to this. Come out. Ji Yuqing's expression was cold. 2 people walked out of the cold wind. One was dressed in black and the other in plain clothes. They had different faces and different auras. Mo Gate's 9th son. Seeing that loathsome face again, Ji Yuqing's eyes flickered coldly. She became even more vigilant. I let you escape last time. You won't be so lucky today, said Yan Jiushi coldly. What about you? Who are you? Ji Yuqing looked at the plain-clothed youth. I'm from White Jade Capital. I just happened to be passing by. Please go ahead. The plain-clothed youth glanced at the familiar face of the black-clothed youth and smiled. He walked away, leaving the 2 of them alone. The battle was about to begin. The tension could erupt at any moment. The plain-clothed youth opened his white fan and gently waved it. Wind and fire appeared. Brother, you can change your face. When I came just now, I just happened to see Mo Gate's 9th son die in battle. Disguising yourself as someone who's already dead isn't too auspicious, said the plain-clothed youth. Chapter 736. In the wilderness, Yan Jiushi once again blocked the god bloodline. Su Yi appeared at the same time, watching quietly. Who are you? Ji Yuqing's expression was ice-cold as she said in a cold voice. Yan Jiushi looked at the man not far away, unable to hide the killing intent in his eyes. Evil qi spread, and Yan Jiushi returned to his original appearance. His face was covered in black patterns, showing no emotion. Su Yi's eyes flashed when she saw the familiar black patterns. She stood there silently. The 2 experts clashed, and the divine scroll appeared again. Ji Yuqing used her ultimate move, and her god bloodline rose, shining with purple light. Divine scroll, divine dance of the heavens. The moment the earth-shattering heavenly book martial technique appeared, the 8 stars appeared in the night sky. The boundless power of the stars fell from the sky with a majestic divine might. Not far away, Su Yi's eyes flashed when she saw this. The divine scroll was indeed worthy of being a heavenly book. Yan Jiushi didn't dodge. Evil qi surged around his body like a dragon or tiger, and a powerful pressure rose rapidly, blocking the star power. The 2 moves clashed, and the shockwaves caused the stars to collapse. Evil qi broke through the air and swept forward. Ji Yuqing stepped lightly, avoiding the shockwaves. She waved her hand, and a purple ribbon flew out. It was soft and gentle, and it scattered the evil qi. Unstoppable divine master. The purple ribbon spread, splitting the sky and the sea. Ji Yuqing didn't want to drag this battle out, so she used another ultimate move. Her god bloodline's power surged, and her might became stronger. Yan Jiushi's eyes narrowed, and black qi surrounded his body. He took a step forward and attacked first. The 2 forces clashed at close range, and the ground couldn't withstand the extreme power. It collapsed. Blood flowed from the corner of Ji Yuqing's mouth, and she was at a disadvantage. Enough, stop. Brother, you're a man, but you're bullying a woman. It's against your status as a king. Seeing that the situation was clear, the corners of the plain-clothed figure's mouth curled up slightly. Yan Jiushi snorted coldly, and his palm energy split, and the surging evil qi slammed toward the talkative person. The clear sunly fire in Su Yi's hand flashed, and it silently dissolved the evil qi. An expert. Yan Jiushi glanced at Yi Futian from the corner of his eyes, and his expression turned serious. He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Yi Futian. Evil qi gathered on his palm, and a mighty palm strike came at Yi Futian. With a loud explosion, Bai Yi flipped her palm and also met the attack with a palm. Immediately, The sand was like a raging wave that rose tens of thousands of feet high. Who are you? When Yan Jiushi and Xiao Chen looked at each other coldly, Yan Jiushi pushed his palm origin even further. Bai Yujing, just a scholar. The white-clothed figure's expression was the same as before. She turned her white fan and flames filled the sky as she casually made a move. Seeing this, Yan Jiushi turned his feet and avoided the fire waves. He turned his palm into a fist and punched the sky. The white fan moved again, not yielding an inch, shocking the world, once again responding to the attack. With a loud rumble, the heavens and earth became boundless. In close combat, moves were simplified, and only relying on their foundation and cultivation, neither of them took half a step back. Move after move bombarded each other, and the aftershocks shook the heavens and earth within 100 miles, as if they were being punished by the heavens. All life was destroyed. There's actually an expert like you on the ancient road? I'm truly surprised. After exchanging several moves, Yan Jiushi found it difficult to gain the upper hand. His eyes became even colder. We're the same. Brother, you can't kill me, so why waste time here? Ning Chen flipped his palm and shook off the battle, smiling gently. Yan Jiushi snorted coldly and instantly retreated. Bai Yujing, I look forward to meeting you in life and death. The voice that echoed in the night was emotionless and cold. The night wind blew gently, stirring up a strand of sand that reflected the vermilion dots. It was so beautiful. Thank you for your help, Sir Bai. Jiuqing suppressed the surging blood qi in her body and stepped forward, bowing gracefully. Miss, you're too courteous. It was nothing. Ningchen closed his white fan and smiled. I will remember Sir Bai's kindness today and will definitely repay you in the future. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Jiuqing once again bowed politely before turning and leaving. That person might come back at any moment. Miss, you're injured and traveling alone is dangerous. Why don't I travel with you? We can take care of each other on the way, Ningchen suggested. Jiuqing hesitated, but after a while, she nodded slightly and said, Then I'll have to trouble you, sir. Ningchen saw her hesitation, but he didn't point it out. He smiled faintly and walked forward. It was impossible for anyone not to have any doubts about what had happened today. A pure hero saving a damsel in distress? It was just a beautiful fairy tale. Jiuqing had seen far too much cruelty on the ancient road. If she really trusted someone of unknown origin so easily, she wouldn't have lived until now. May I know your name? Ningchen asked under the moonlight. Jiuqing replied. So it's the Clear Prince. Nice to meet you, Ningchen smiled gently. Sir Bai must be joking. Who dares to call themselves king in front of you? Jiuqing said softly. Miss Ji, there's no need to be so polite. I know you're suspicious of my identity, but I can guarantee you that I have no ill intentions, Ningchen said seriously. Jiuqing fell silent and didn't reply. Miss Ji, do you know the identity of that person from before? Why did he attack you? Ningchen asked. I don't know. Jiuqing shook her head. I've never met him, so there's no enmity between us. However, from his words, he should have come for the Ji family's bloodline. Ningchen's expression changed. The bloodline of a deity? This person's strength is extraordinary. Even a corporeal realm expert might not necessarily be his match. Miss Ji, you should be more careful in the future. It's us who have been narrow-minded. Jiuqing sighed. Today, I've learned that there are always people stronger than me. Miss, there's no need to belittle yourself. A difference of one day on the path of cultivation is like the difference between heaven and earth. That person from before and even that ninth son of Mahist sect have cultivated for nearly 100 years. In a few more years, we'll surpass the qualifications to enter the ancient road. Miss, you've already achieved so much at such a young age. Your future is limitless, Ningchen smiled. Jiuqing collected her thoughts, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. Young Master Bai is truly someone who knows how to comfort others. Thank you. It's not comfort. I'm just speaking the truth. Scholars never lie. Ningchen said with a smile. Jiuqing chuckled and said, Then why have you been concealing your strength? Could it be that you always win people over with virtue? Ah. Ningchen chuckled. It's not that I want to hide it. I'm friends with the Red King. In the past, whenever something happened, it was the Red King who solved it. The Red King? Jiuqing narrowed her eyes and asked, You know the Red King, Master Bai? We've known each other for a long time. Ningchen casually replied. Anyway, that girl Wu disliked communicating with others. No matter what he said, Jiuqing couldn't verify it. What a coincidence. Jiuqing's smile grew wider. I was just looking for the Red King. With your help, it'll be even faster. Hundreds of miles away, two women were walking together. She was supporting the injured woman. Her face was full of worry. Wait, stop and heal first. She said. Wu shook her head and looked into the distance. Tears flashed in her eyes. After searching for so many years, she finally saw him again. She couldn't catch up with the changes in the central state. This time, no matter what, she would not let him face all the dangers alone. I planted the love voodoo in Sir. If something happens to him, I will sense it. Your injury is not light. If you don't heal, even if you find Sir, he will only be worried. She advised again. Wu didn't answer, but her stumbling footsteps never stopped. She was still the stubborn girl in the past. When the cold moon shone in the sky, in the distance, two figures stepped forward. They looked so familiar. That is, Sir. She looked startled and shocked. Girl, long time no see. Ningchen walked over with a smile on his face. Seeing the person coming, even if the appearance was changed, the familiar feeling was still very clear. Wu could no longer suppress the tears in her eyes and dripped down. The body that hadn't knelt for more than 10 years finally knelt down. The grace of rebirth was hard to taste in this life. Well, you are now a king. Why are you still like a little girl? Get up quickly. Don't let Miss Ji laugh at you. Ningchen went up to help the former up and chuckled softly. Wu raised her hand and wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. A smile appeared on her delicate face. After so many years, Sir still hasn't changed at all. On the side, Jiuqing recovered from the shock. In any case, she didn't expect that the famous Red Monarch would kneel to a young man like a maid. Sir Bai, how are you? She saw the former's face and smiled playfully. Oh, Miss Ruoshi, how are you? I haven't seen you for many years. You have become more and more beautiful. Ningchen smiled and cooperated. Hearing the conversation between the two, Wu reacted. She looked at the woman in purple on the side, and a strange light flashed in her eyes. It seems that this clear monarch is very useful to Sir. Red Monarch, thank you for that day. Jiuqing stepped forward and said softly. Compared with the man beside her whose strength and origin were difficult to discern, the Red Monarch in front of her was obviously more trustworthy. Wu smiled, pointed to the former, and then pointed to herself. She made a few difficult gestures. Jiuqing's eyes showed a puzzled look. Wu invites Miss to go together. One more person means one more person to take care of each other. Ningchen explained. Wu nodded slightly, and her bright eyes showed a look of expectation. This, Jiuqing hesitated again. Originally, she only came here to confirm whether this white jade Jing had been lying. She always felt that this person was too mysterious and difficult to understand. Seeing the former hesitating, Wu stepped forward and put the former's hand on her meridians. Sensing the Red Monarch's injury, Jiuqing sighed in her heart and nodded, okay. Next to her, Ningchen looked at Wu's action and smiled gently. After all, this was his girl. She knew to share the young master's burden. Sir, is Wu's injury okay? She was still a little worried and asked. It's fine. I have just checked. He will be fine after a few days of rest. Ningchen replied. Chapter 737. On the ancient starry sky path, a majestic hall floated up and down. Inside the hall, experts from various starfields stood, their powerful auras unfathomable. Supremacy Ziwei, why have you called us here? Asked Shinji. Mahest Sek's ninth son is dead, but the two swords fell into the lava. Do you have any ideas? Asked Supremacy Ziwei. Shinji frowned. Mahest Sek's ninth son is dead? I did it myself. There's no mistake. Shinji, there's no need to doubt it, said Supremacy Ziwei. We can't lose the immortal slaying and immortal trapping swords. However, the lava below the ancient path is unusual. It won't be easy to find them, said Supremacy Ziwei. I'll do it. Supremacy Lingshu said calmly. Among all the supremacies present, he was the only one with a fire attribute body. Rather than letting others speak, he might as well do it himself. Supremacy Lingshu, it won't be easy for you to find them alone. I'll go and help you, said the Waning Moon House Master, who had been silent all this time. That's good. I'll have to trouble you too, said Supremacy Ziwei. Aside from the matter of the swords, we also need to deal with those 3 mysterious experts from the unknown world as soon as possible. Can we find any traces of them? Asked Supremacy Skymist. We can only see that they're still on the ancient path, but we can't see their exact whereabouts, replied Shinji. These people's strength and schemes aren't something ordinary people can compare to. If we want to find them, we need to plan carefully, said Supremacy Jin Yao. Since they're on the ancient path, their goal is very likely the same as ours. We need to find them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable, reminded Supremacy Ziwei. Ziwei, all heaven, in Qiong, since your main bodies are already on the ancient path, you'll be in charge of this matter, suggested Supremacy Skymist. All right. Supremacy Ziwei nodded. This matter couldn't be ignored. They had to find a way to solve it. Everyone, go back to work. The ancient battlefield is about to open. Supremacies, please prepare yourselves. Understood. The supremacies left one after another. House Master. At the last moment, Shinji called out to her. House Master, you took the initiative to go to the ancient path. Could it be that you really want to help us find the swords? Is there anything else? The Dawn Moon Brothel Master stopped and asked. Tower Master, you also believe that Mo Gate's 9th son is dead? Shinji asked with a slight frown. How can it be wrong when the venerables of the All Heavens personally said it? The Waning Moon Tower's master said indifferently. Hearing this, Shinji looked at the person in front of him. After a while, he said seriously, Tower Lord, a straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. All this time, you have been paying more attention to this child than anyone else. If this child were to fall like this, wouldn't all of your efforts be wasted? Compared to the opening of the ancient battlefield, the sacrifice of anyone is not worth mentioning. Shinji, there's no need to probe any further. The death of Mo Gate's 9th disciple is already an indisputable fact. Now, we should shift our attention to proper business. The opening of the ancient battlefield is at hand, and whether or not we can obtain the immortal karma will depend on this. After saying that, the Dawn Moon House Mistress didn't stay any longer. Her figure dissipated and disappeared. Shinji frowned again. Mistress of the Dawn Moon Tower, what are you thinking? In Jinsei City, on the 2nd floor of the Dawn Moon Tower, the Bright Room's door opened. The Dawn Moon Tower's master, who was dressed in a silver-gray cloak, walked out. She had starry eyes and sharp eyebrows. Her usual gentleness was gone, and her cold face was expressionless. The aura around her was sharp and powerful. Hongwan, I'm going out. You stay and watch the restaurant. The Waning Moon Brothel Master said, and then she walked out. On the high platform, Hongwan, who was playing the zither, was startled. Looking at the departing figure of the Dawn Moon Tower, her eyes revealed a trace of confusion. Usually, the Tower Lord would bring her along when she went out. Why did she leave alone this time? At the same time, in the sky above Sinuan Sky City in the vast ancient world, a spatial passage opened. A young man in silver walked in. His incomparably noble aura was like that of a god, making people not dare to look at him directly. Not long after, tens of thousands of miles away, the space swirled and the silver-clothed figure walked out, appearing on the ancient road. Josher, how's the matter? The silver-clothed man asked. It's not going well. Yen Josher looked at the newcomer and honestly said, a new expert has appeared on the ancient road. His strength is unfathomable, especially his foundation, which is beyond imagination. When I was trying to kill the god's bloodline, I was stopped by this person and failed on the verge of success. Even you can't test his ability. It seems that this is a true expert, the silver-clothed man said in surprise. Now that the god's bloodline and the Red King are together with this person, if we want to get rid of them, unless we can deceive the star area venerables and use all of our cultivation, we won't have a chance, Yen Jiosher said seriously. Hearing this, the silver-clothed man pondered for a moment. After a while, he said, "It's not impossible to deceive the star area venerables. I can deceive them, but Li Tianqiong isn't here. Can you two guarantee that you can get rid of them in one go?" "I'm 100% sure," Yen Jiosher replied. "That's good." The silver-clothed man nodded and said, "I'll deceive them for you for 2 hours. In these 2 hours, you must get rid of these 3 people as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the star area venerables find out, the consequences will be very troublesome." "Understood," Yen Jiosher replied again. At the same time, 1,000 miles away, under the bright moon, 3 women and a man were walking together. Beside the young man were 3 women with outstanding appearances. They were like 100 flowers competing with each other. It was hard to look at them. "Miss Ruoxi, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it," Ji Yuqing couldn't help but ask after a while. "Clear Prince, please speak," Ruoxi turned her head and said. "Aren't you the maid of the 9th son of the Mo clan? Why don't I see any sadness when something happened to your young master?" Ji Yuqing asked in confusion. Hearing this, Ruoxi curled the corners of her mouth. After a while, a worried look appeared on her face. She sighed and said, "Clear Prince, you don't know this. I was originally a commoner's daughter. When the 9th son of the Mo clan saw that I was pretty, he abducted me and kept me as his maid. He even planted a poison in me to prevent me from escaping." Cough, cough. At the side, when Ningchen heard this, he couldn't catch his breath and choked to the point of coughing. Hong Wulei quickly patted Ningchen's back to help him breathe. Ji Yuqing also found it hard to believe. With the 9th son of the Mo clan, there was no need for him to abduct a commoner's daughter, right? "If Clear Prince doesn't believe me, you can check it yourself." Ruoxi stretched out her arm. The worry on her face deepened. Ji Yuqing doubtfully reached out to check Ningchen's vein. Not long after, her beautiful face gradually sank. "Scum!" Ji Yuqing retracted her hand and said coldly. Being scolded to his face, Ningchen smiled bitterly in his heart. He touched his nose helplessly and turned to glare at Ruoxi. "This girl is getting bolder and bolder. She even dares to bully my young master." Ruoxi covered her mouth and smiled. She hugged Ningchen's arm and said, "Young Master Bai, you are so powerful. Can you help me get rid of the poison? I will be your woman in the future." Ji Yuqing frowned unconsciously. She wanted to stop it, but she didn't know much about poison. So, she couldn't do anything. Hong Wulei's face carried an undetectable smile. This time, young master is really going to suffer in silence. "I don't know about poison. I don't have the fortune to accept Miss Ruoxi." Ningchen angrily shook off the arm that was being hugged and said, "Miss Ruoxi, you don't have to be too discouraged. Although I don't know much about poison, there are elders in my Ji family who are quite knowledgeable about it. After this trip is over, I will take you to my Ji family to solve this problem," Ji Yuqing said seriously. "Then, thank you very much, Clear Prince." Ruoxi stuck out her tongue. "It seems the joke was a bit too much. I was just joking a moment ago. Miss Ji doesn't need to worry about this matter. I still have some research on gu poisons. Since Ruoxi and Wu Lei are friends, I will certainly solve this small matter." Ningchen's face showed a smile as he spoke. "Are you sure?" Ji Yuqing was still a little worried. 100%, Ningchen nodded. At this time, Hong Wulei gently pulled the arm of the person next to him and raised his hand to point forward. Ningchen looked up and narrowed his eyes. "Sky Pillar? This should be the 68th one. The second half of the ancient road didn't branch. So, the ancient immortal domain wasn't far away." Seeing the sky pillar in front of them, Ruoxi's face flashed with a touch of worry. "This is troublesome. Each sky pillar had the power of law, so no one else's name could be written on it. How would the young master leave his name?" Ji Yuqing also saw the sky pillar in the distance. She looked at the young man next to her and her eyes flashed. Whether this person was lying or not, she would soon know. Half a quarter of an hour later, four people came in front of the 68th sky pillar. The towering sky pillar went straight into the starry sky. On it, the names exuded a powerful aura. Even after countless years, they were still preserved by the power of law. Among them, several names were not unfamiliar. It was recorded in ancient books that once shook the starry sky and were invincible. Ningchen stood in front of the sky pillar and looked at the names on it, memorizing them one by one. Ruo Shi and Hong Wulei stepped forward one after another to carve their names. Ji Yuqing glanced at the young man next to her and also waved her hand to carve her name. Then she stood quietly and waited. This young master Bai was a smart person. The thing he lacked the most on the ancient road was trust. Now it was time for them to show their trust. After a moment, Ningchen came back to his senses and smiled gently. He stepped forward, waved his white fan, and carved his name. White Jade Capital. Seeing this, Ji Yuqing narrowed her eyes. He wasn't lying, but why had she never heard of this name? On the side, Ruo Shi and Hong Wulei looked at each other. Their eyes were full of doubts. They also couldn't see how the young master did it. Didn't the sky pillars on the ancient road only allow one to carve their name? Let's go. Ningchen turned around and said softly. Then he continued to walk forward. Ji Yuqing, Ruo Shi, and Hong Wulei came back to their senses and followed with doubts. Not long after the four left, cracks appeared on the sky pillar. Starting from the three words White Jade Capital, it spread all the way to the top. The next moment, a rumbling sound echoed and the sky pillar collapsed. Chapter 738. On the final stretch of the ancient starry sky path, the 68th heavenly pillar collapsed. This shocking scene left all the young experts who had rushed over speechless. No one knew why a heavenly pillar had collapsed for no reason. This was something that had never happened in the past. The various managers of the various star fields opened their eyes and looked in the direction of the ancient starry sky path. What was going on? At the same time, illusory figures appeared in the last few heavenly cities on the ancient starry sky path. They looked at the 68th heavenly pillar that had collapsed and said, "Immediately go and investigate what happened." The enforcers in the various heavenly cities respectfully accepted the order and quickly rushed in the direction of the 68th heavenly pillar. Far away, on a mountain peak covered in falling maple leaves, a man in luxurious purple robes stood quietly. Light flashed through his eyes. Who was Bai Yujing? Shenji, you've been staying at the divine secret peak for a long time. Do you have any plans to come out? The void rippled, and an illusory figure walked out. The matter of the ancient path is handled by Ziwei, the various sovereigns, and the other sovereigns. There's no need for me to interfere, said Shenji indifferently. The ancient battlefield is about to open. Everyone will fight for their own opportunities. The sooner you come out, the higher your chances, reminded the illusory figure. Becoming an immortal and obtaining the Tao has always been illusory. If it was so easy to become a true immortal, then the four immortal realms wouldn't have collapsed in the ancient era, and the true immortals wouldn't have all disappeared, said Shenji calmly. You don't believe in immortals? Asked the illusory figure. I only believe in myself, said Shenji indifferently. What about that adopted daughter of yours? Shenji, we've known each other for hundreds of years, and I have some understanding of you. You haven't accepted a disciple for hundreds of years. Why did you accept this girl this time? Questioned the illusory figure. I don't need to explain my actions to anyone. Bai Yue, you didn't come to the divine secret peak just to reminisce about old times, right? Tell me what you came for, said Shenji coldly. I came to borrow something from you, said the illusory figure. What is it? Asked Shenji. The heaven sealing chessboard, replied the illusory figure. Starfall Sky City was one of the last 3 sky cities before the ancient battlefield. The experts of the younger generation were about to arrive. The 9 law enforcers in the city had already arrived many days in advance. Looking at the broken ancient road in front of them, their expressions were grave. The youngsters who set out first are about to arrive. Is there still no way to repair this path? Within the multicolored light, a powerful figure appeared and asked. One of the 9 enforcers stepped forward and respectfully said, "Sovereign, this crack is really too large. Moreover, the power of the laws here is extremely unstable. I'm afraid that at least 2 true stage sovereigns will be needed to repair it. We all have things to do, so it's impossible for us to come here and deal with this matter. We'll just do our best. If we really can't fix it, then let those youngsters find a way to get through it themselves." As he spoke, the figure in the multicolored light gradually dissipated, and a moment later it disappeared. Thousands of miles away, the night sky was dotted with stars. A bonfire danced. 3 women sat in front of the bonfire, using the light of the fire to warm their bodies. After cultivating for dozens of years, he was no longer afraid of heat and cold. However, in front of this initial fire, he could still feel a trace of indescribable warmth. Not far from the bonfire, Su-yi stood quietly. She habitually stayed away from the bonfire, and no one knew why. Hong Wulei looked over, and a little brilliance flashed in his eyes. Ruoshi was silent and said nothing. This habit of the young master was not just a day or two. It had been like this since he was still a Marquis of Great Xia. In the study of the Marquis mansion, no fire was lit all year round. In winter, it was even colder. If the young master did not allow it, no one dared to light a fire in the study. At first, she did not understand. Later, when the young master was not around, she stayed in the study for a night and finally understood. The night in the study was so cold that it made one unable to feel sleepy. Was the young master tired? There was no doubt. However, the enemies of Great Xia were the world's #1 sage, Fan Lingyue, and the Divine Continent's #1 martial artist, the Eternal Night Hierarch. How could the young master have any time to rest? Behind the peace of Great Xia, who knew how many soldiers had sacrificed, and who knew how many days and nights the young master had risked his life to think of a plan. Facing the 2 strongest people in the Divine Continent, even someone as smart as the young master felt strained. Now, Great Xia was finally at peace, but the young master still owed a lifetime of kindness. The ghost girl gave up her life and was willing to fall into the darkness forever. This kind of kindness was too heavy. The cold wind blew, and the bonfire flickered violently. The warmth was blown to Suyi's body. Perhaps even the wind couldn't bear it and wanted to warm this exhausted body. Hong Wulei got up, walked to the former's side, and reached out to pull his arm. "Girl, what's wrong?" Ning Chen withdrew his mind and looked at the woman, puzzled. Hong Wulei pulled the former to the bonfire, then pressed his shoulders with both hands and let him sit down. "Young master, rest for a while. With Miss Qing and Wulei here, nothing will happen." "Ruo," she said softly. Ji Yuqing noticed the former's address, and a strange color flashed in her eyes. "Young Master Bai has promised to help me remove the goo poison, so I am now Young Master Bai's maid." Ruo, she explained. Ji Yuqing nodded and didn't think much about it. Ning Chen smiled and glanced at the 2 girls beside him. "What's wrong? I'm not used to being so good to the young master all of a sudden." Hong Wulei stubbornly pulled the former's arm. Her delicate face was full of persistence. Ning Chen was helpless. He couldn't persuade the girl in front of him, so he nodded and said, "Okay, I'll listen to you. I'll rest for a while. Call me if there's anything." After speaking, Ning Chen closed his eyes and rested for a while. Hong Wulei and Ruo, she looked at each other with a smile in their eyes. "Wulei, where are you and young Master Bai from?" After half a quarter of an hour, Ji Yuqing felt the man beside Hong Wulei had fallen asleep. She asked the question in her heart. "Tearless City of Central State." Hong Wulei wrote on the ground with a dead branch. Ji Yuqing saw it and frowned slightly. Tearless City, where was this place? She had never heard of it. Which star field is Tearless City in? Ji Yuqing continued to ask. Hong Wulei heard this and looked at Ruoshi. She also didn't know which star field the inner realm belonged to. Ziwei's star field. Ruoshi replied. She had heard from her young master that the inner realm and Ziwei's star field were connected. If she had to say which star field the inner realm belonged to, it could only be this one. Ji Yuqing nodded and made a mental note. It seemed that when she returned, she would have to carefully investigate this tearless city. For two young experts to come out at once, such an inheritance absolutely couldn't be unknown. At this moment, 300 miles away, the void split open and a young man in silver walked out. He had a handsome face and a noble temperament. His powerful pressure was far superior to that of the executors of the ancient road. Behind the silver-clothed man, two other men walked out. One was in black and the other was in purple. Both of them had a powerful aura that shook heaven and earth. "Is that him?" The silver-clothed man looked at the figure in the distance and asked. "Yes." Yen Jiosher nodded. "From now on, I will conceal the heavenly secrets within 1,000 miles for 2 hours. You two fight quickly. Don't delay," the silver-clothed man said calmly. "Understood." The two of them nodded. Immediately, their figures rushed out and hurried forward. "Someone is coming." Next to the bonfire, Ji Yuqing's body suddenly shook and she looked into the distance. Hearing this, Hongwulei looked at Ruo Shi and signaled her to take care of the young master. She then stood up. The divine furnace shone brightly and a blood-red light fell down, covering a radius of 10 meters. Hongwulei walked out and walked forward. Seeing this, Ji Yuqing subconsciously glanced at the sleeping man and also got up to follow. "Red Monarch, these two aren't simple. Be careful." Feeling the heavy pressure from the distance getting closer and closer, Ji Yuqing warned. Hongwulei nodded, her eyes filled with determination. More than 10 years ago, the young master had protected her time and time again. Now, it was her turn to protect the young master. "Young master, do you see? Wulei has also grown up. You're no longer alone." Ruo Shi looked at the man beside her with a gentle expression. They had been a burden to the young master for 30 years. From now on, they didn't want to be a burden anymore. In the distance, two streams of light flashed and soon arrived in front of the group. 300 miles away, the young man in silver raised his right hand and a silver brilliance spread out from his body. A disdainful power spread out and sealed the space. "Finally, I don't have to be afraid anymore." The two landed. Yen Jiosher looked at the silver brilliance in the sky with a cold expression. He took half a step forward and released his aura. The evil chi that exploded suddenly rose to the extreme. It was boundless, and it was so powerful that it was shocking. "Everyone, I've already greeted you several times. This time, I'll send you on your way." Yen Jiosher coldly said, "Time is limited. No need to talk anymore. Let's end this quickly." On the side, the man in purple also unsealed his cultivation. His vast true yuan spread out and reached the peak. Sensing that the two's cultivation far exceeded the true realm, Ji Yuqing's expression changed. Half-step true realm or true realm? How could this be? Hongwulei also felt the powerful pressure from the two, but she refused to budge. Her eyes were unwavering. Under the furnace, Ningchen opened his eyes and looked at Hongwulei who was standing outside. The corner of his mouth curled up into a smile. This girl had indeed grown up. She was no longer the little girl who was at a loss when she encountered danger. "Young master." Seeing the former wake up, Ruo Shi couldn't hide the worry on her face. No matter what, she didn't expect two such terrifying powerhouses to appear here. Wasn't the ancient road only accessible to those who cultivated for less than 100 years? Why didn't the sovereigns discover these two? "It's fine. Young master is here." Ningchen smiled and softly comforted her. But, seeing the young master about to attack, Ruo Shi became even more anxious and tried to stop him. "Ruo Shi, do you know why I can carve a fake name on Heavenly Pillar?" Ningchen interrupted the former, stood up and walked forward. He said indifferently, "Because since the ancient road existed, your young master has been the strongest person on this ancient road, including those venerables who injected the laws into the heavenly pillars." Chapter 739. Under the cold night sky, Yen Jiosher and Ying Qianjiang joined hands. Evil energy and demonic energy spread out, and their might was shocking. A power that surpassed the corporeal realm was fully released. The biggest black hand of the ancient road appeared once again. Ji Yuqing and Hongwulei had grave expressions. Even though they were kings, they were like duckweed in the rain, on the verge of death. "Wulei, step back. Young master will feel ashamed to let a girl stand in front of him." As the voice spoke, a plain-clothed person walked to the front with a gentle expression. When Hong Wulei saw the former walk out, he was stunned at first. Then, he showed an anxious expression. "Let young master deal with it." Ruo Shi stepped forward and shook her head gently. Ji Yuqing narrowed her eyes, feeling that something was wrong. "Miss Qing, let's withdraw first." Ruo Shi looked at the clear prince and reminded him. Then, without saying anything else, she pulled Wulei, who was beside her, and retreated from the battle. Ji Yuqing hesitated for a moment. Then she stepped forward and left. In the battle, Yan Jiushi and Ying Qianjiang did not stop her. They knew that their greatest opponent today was the plain-clothed youth before them. The other three were not a concern. "Gentlemen, please." As soon as the request for battle was made, snow fell around plain-clothed. Amid the snow, the clear sunly fire fan swayed. The white flame in the snow was dazzling. When the two saw this, they no longer hesitated. Their figures flashed and they started the battle. The first move, the might of the heavens dispelled the wind and clouds, causing gods to descend into the mortal world. The moves of the three of them collided, causing boundless torrents to sweep out with shocking aftershock that caused waves to sweep out, and its world-shocking might instantly destroyed the heavens and the earth in the surroundings, causing mountains to move and the earth to move. The clear sunly wind fire fan danced in the wind and snow. Plain-clothed, who was as immovable as a mountain, had an unparalleled foundation. She did not show any weakness when facing two experts working together. Expert. After the first move, everyone knew. Yan Jiushi gathered his evil energy with a flip of his palm. Immediately, a violent sandstorm spread out in all directions. The shocking might swept through the sky and clouds. Furious lightning fell from the sky, supporting the might of the ultimate move. The evil king's moves were ruthless. A vigorous might greeted the opponent head-on. Everywhere the move passed, the void turned into darkness. When the ultimate move arrived, plain-clothed did not dodge. Instead, the dark yellow light around her flourished. The ground seemed to sense it, and the ground shook violently. "This is a heavenly book?" Outside the battle, Ji Yuqing was shocked. She looked at the figure in the battle with disbelief. The tomes of arcane appeared. Dust billowed and the earth bulged. It helped the knowing destiny state to resist the extreme move of the evil vitality. With a loud rumble, the earth in all directions sank. Yan Jiushi took half a step back as the blood and qi in his body surged violently. What a strong foundation! The moment the two separated, lightning flashed. Ying Qianjiang gathered all his demonic qi and attacked with a killing move. Ning Chen's expression turned cold as he unfurled the white fan in his right hand. Flames rose from it as he countered the attack with attack. Close combat, murderous intent. Cold light flickered in the wind. Was it fast or was it fast? Speed? I'll keep you company. Ning Chen clenched his left hand and Yan Qing came out of the sheath. The next moment, Bai Yi moved first. The blade of pleasure was unrestrained. In terms of speed, knowing destiny never lost to anyone. Clashing lights flashed continuously in the night sky. Demonic qi surged like roaring thunder. Bai Yi flashed like a rainbow breaking through the sky. In the blink of an eye, they exchanged 100 moves. Before the outcome was clear, Yan Jiushi shouted. His evil vitality condensed into a black spear. Black dragon qi spread out and entered the battle again. The white fan shook the dragon qi. On the other side, Nian Qing blocked the lightning. Bai Yi, who stood in the air, shouted. Her body glowed brightly and forced the two back. Such a shocking ability shocked the two. Since when did such a terrifying expert appear on the ancient road? Outside the battle, Ji Yuqing was also shocked. Could someone who had cultivated for less than 100 years reach such a level? Be careful. This person is no weaker than those star domain venerables. Yan Jiushi reminded and stepped into the air. Black demonic qi coiled around him. Dragon roars resounded. The evil soldier dragon soul's aura rose to its peak. On the ground, Ying Qianjiang also gathered his demonic qi. A white sword appeared in the rumbling thunder. The thunder made the world tremble. After an instant, the two figures disappeared at the same time. The black dragon broke through the clouds and the thunder crisscrossed. Is this all the schemes you've been scheming for so long? Ningchen swung his saber to block the sword. At the same time, he gathered his extreme essence on his white fan and faced the evil dragon soul's power head-on. The four weapons clashed. Turbulence surged. Wind blew sand and stones. The two experts' auras rose. They worked together to kill the first person on the ancient road. Evil Dragon Overture, Birth Nether devours the heavens. After exchanging blows for a long time, Yanjiosher found it difficult to gain the upper hand. He forcibly destroyed the evil vitality in the spear and absorbed the dragon's soul back into his body. Demonic marks immediately appeared on his face, and his aura rose again. Black spear light tore through the air. The evil vitality surged, and a dragon roared in the wild. This was a desperate move. Its might was incomparably strong. Wherever the evil vitality passed, the void disappeared and ice melted. When Ying Qianjiang saw this, he slashed his sword with his left hand. Scarlet demonic chi splashed on the sword. Instantly, demonic chi soared into the sky and covered the moon. The two moves combined to destroy the world. However, Su Yi stood still like a divine tree. Light flashed around her. The end of the heavenly book appeared for the first time. It was a world-shocking ability. When the move arrived, it suddenly stopped 3 feet away. After a moment, it quickly melted away. This unbelievable scene surpassed everyone's understanding. It shocked everyone present. Nothing scroll. Outside the battle, Jiuqing recovered from the shock and said slowly, "There was no mistake. Among the 10 scrolls of the heavenly tomes, life was the beginning, God was the most respected, and nothingness was the end. Only the volume of nothingness could eliminate all power and return it to nothingness." The wind and sand dissipated. Ying Qianjiang moved. The next moment, thunder rumbled and sword light arrived. With a clang, the sword and saber collided. Ningchen looked at the sword in the former's hand. The coldness in his eyes became clearer. "Back off." After shaking off the battle, Ningchen waved his hand and put away Nian Qing and Clear Sun's Li fire. He looked at the two and coldly said, "The test is over. From now on, life and death are in your own hands. Leave it to fate." As soon as she finished speaking, there was a thunderous rumble and thunder rumbled in the sky. Below, blood mist filled the air and a beautiful green sword slowly descended. The moment it touched her hand, the runes on the sword spread out and stabbed into her arm. His cold eyes and disdainful figure looked down on the world. His sword aura didn't move, but a boundless pressure pressed down on everyone. Outside the battle, Ji Yuqing and Hong Wulei immediately retreated 5 miles away. An unprecedented pressure came. Yan Jiosher and Ying Qianjiang's expressions changed. They didn't dare to hesitate. They rushed out and took the initiative. Sword style only won. Absolute sword pressure eliminated the filth in front of them. Su Yi and Su Yi were defeated. Ugh! Blood gushed out and dyed the void red. Before only one, they suddenly felt so insignificant that they couldn't even control their own lives. A cold wind whistled through the night. The falling figures kicked up dust and sand. Su Yi and Su Yi staggered and vomited blood. Blood flowed from their bodies, staining the ground. Chapter 740. Drip. Drip. Under the moonlight in the wilderness, the killing situation changed. The one who had planned this had become a fish in a net. His life was in danger. "It's over." Su Yi stepped forward. Blood light lingered on her sword. Her killing intent didn't diminish at all. Knowing destiny would never spare an enemy's life. The sound of approaching footsteps was the prelude of the death god's call. The two wanted to resist, but they vomited another mouthful of blood. They couldn't hold on. The sword slashed down with boundless sharpness. The entire world was cut apart, rumbling and trembling. The death god had arrived. At this moment of life and death, a silver light suddenly appeared in the sky. The void swirled, turning into a hurricane that blocked the sword. With a loud bang, the dust and sand scattered. In the aftermath, a young man in luxurious silver divine clothes appeared. His face was handsome and devilish, and the silver pearl curtain on his head emitted a dazzling sound. He had an extremely noble temperament, and it was as if a god had descended to the mortal world, causing others to not dare look directly at him. "You've disappointed me." Di Mingtian glanced at the two of them and said calmly, "Your Highness, please forgive us." Yan Jiushi and Ing Qianjiang lowered their heads. "You can leave," Di Mingtian calmly said. His gaze shifted to the plain-clothed young man. "Powerful swordsman. With an expert like you on the ancient path, this trip wasn't in vain." Likewise, Ning Chen looked coldly at the person in front of him. The true schemer had finally appeared. To be able to come here without alerting a group of sovereigns, this person's ability could be imagined. "I want to take them away." "Swordsman, can you let me go?" asked Di Mingtian. "You've come from afar. I can't be rude. Whether you and these two can leave or not, we'll see," said Ning Chen calmly. "Deference is no substitute for obedience. Please." Di Mingtian didn't say anything else. He raised his left hand. Immediately, a fierce wind howled. Outside the battle, Ji Yuqing's expression froze. The heavens were descending. White clothes flashed past, a sword splitting heaven and earth, a world-shocking sword pressure, splitting apart 10,000 techniques, loudly descending. As soon as the two of them exchanged blows, boundless pressure roared and surged violently, causing numerous expanses of the ground to collapse rapidly and sink down by over 1 kilometer. "Retreat." Seeing this, Ji Yuqing and Hong Wulei quickly retreated with Ruo Shi, unwilling to be affected by this terrifying aftershock. This was a world-shaking battle that had never occurred on the ancient road before, something that surpassed the limits of the younger generation. In fact, not even the executors of the ancient road could compare. Sword style. As the palm and the sword collided, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. The wind and snow around him surged. He activated the Heavenly Book martial arts with his unparalleled foundation, and his ultimate move reappeared. Earth destruction, mountain destruction. The sword that soared into the sky tore apart the earth. It was boundless and dazzling, illuminating the cold moon of the 9 heavens. Di Mingtian flipped his left hand, and the heavens and earth trembled. Cracks appeared in the space, swallowing the sword chi and moving it to another world. Law. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. It had been a long time since he had met such an expert. When he was in the Divine Prefecture, he had fought with Zhong Qianqiu and knew how difficult it was to deal with a sorcery master. However, due to the influence of the Pluto barrier, it was very difficult for inner realm cultivators to cultivate. Compared to the person in front of him, Zhong Qianqiu's cultivation was much weaker. There was no difference between martial arts and sorcery. They were just two paths of cultivation. If one could prove one of them, it was enough to stand among the strongest. While he was thinking, the sword moved rapidly. Every move broke the mountains and overturned the seas. The earth could not bear the extreme power of the sword, and huge gullies were created. Di Mingtian's heavenly fate transformed into the power of the law. The wind and thunder around him were ordered to meet the sword attack head-on. Between the two, space and time continued to collapse. Black cracks crisscrossed, and it was the clearest portrayal of the battle on the top. Forbidden dark seal, light of heaven. After fighting for a while, Di Mingtian's heavenly fate transformed into the power of the law. In an instant, endless pressure swept out. Above the 9 heavens, the heavenly light shone, and invisible murderous intent spread down. Under the heavenly light, the space collapsed. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward, and wind and snow gathered on his sword. A huge vortex appeared and rushed into the sky, covering the heavenly light. Sword style, ultimate heaven. The power of the sword spread for thousands of miles, and the ultimate martial art reflected the stars. In Su Yi's hand, the sword light was extremely bright. It was as if the heavenly river was falling. In the next moment, the sword light fell, and the heavenly river shone brightly. The unparalleled sword power descended, destroying the world. Di Mingtian's expression turned serious. He flipped his palm, and the scene of the destruction of the world and the universe collapsing appeared. It was a shocking scene. The sword light and the phenomenon collided. Shocking shockwaves spread out for thousands of miles, and mountains collapsed. Ji Yuqing and the other two retreated again and again. They looked at the destroyed world in front of them, and their minds were shaken again and again. They had all cultivated for less than 100 years. How could someone reach such a shocking level? Ji Yuqing looked at the Red King. For the first time, she understood. No wonder a maid under him had the strength of a king. This person was too terrifying. He was even stronger than the 9th son of Mo Gate. Swordsman, your name? Di Mingtian waved his hand to disperse the dust in the aftermath. Bai Yujing. Ningchen said coldly. I will remember your name. Di Mingtian, formally request for a fight. As soon as he said that, Di Mingtian shouted softly. Immediately, the dust under his feet rose without any wind. Waves of abnormally powerful might spread rapidly. The world seemed to feel it, and it shook violently. A light flashed in Ningchen's eyes. He flipped his left hand, and the world opened. They merged together, and the extreme might of his sword reached its peak. Forbidden Dark Seal, 6 Sins Dao Destruction. Di Mingtian raised his hand. Purple light flashed in his eyes, and the sun, moon, and stars appeared. Divine Yuan surged and the void sank. Everything turned to dust. Sword technique, Divine Seal. As the extreme essence reached, Ning Chen's body spread out. He waved his sword, and a sword sealed the gods, breaking all laws. The world shook violently, and the dual essences swallowed rapidly. Turbulence surged, and endless destruction spread out. This was an indescribably shocking battle. It was the first time in one's life to see someone in the life-knowing destiny state. His battle prowess had reached an unprecedented height, and his sword technique was shocking. Di Mingtian looked at the former. There was no change on his handsome face. In the wind and waves, the silver bead curtain on his head that symbolized the royal family rustled. His eyes that looked down on the world gradually showed a hint of interest. Be careful, I'm going to get serious. Di Mingtian's figure rose into the sky. He formed a seal with his hands, and starlight appeared around him. A silver totem appeared, rotating slowly, and a dazzling brilliance bloomed. Di Mingtian token. The extreme move was used, and meteors fell from all directions. Fiery light shone, and they fell into the mortal world. This was the first move seen in the mortal world. It commanded the stars, and the most terrifying might of the world turned into a rain of meteors. Seeing this, Ningchen took a step forward, and the 4 waves split open the sky. The extreme martial technique was like the beginning of the world, and the divine seal descended into the mortal world again. The 4 origins of the sword appeared at the same time. Wind, fire, ice, and thunder spread out and surrounded the sword. The shocking move reflected the rain of fire, and the wind and snow rushed into the sky. They collided. With a loud boom, the most terrifying collision caused the spatial seal to collapse. The aftershock spread out thousands of miles. The ancient starry sky road could not withstand the extreme might of the art of world extermination. The road was cut off, and thousands of miles around it disappeared. Endless distance away, the star domains felt this terrifying aura and looked at the ancient road at the same time, their faces filled with shock. The seal was broken, and the heavenly secrets were revealed. Di Mingtian looked at the white-clothed figure in front of him with regret. He had never seen such an opponent in his life. Unfortunately, it was too late to decide the victor. This battle will end for now. I look forward to the moment of life and death in the future. As he spoke, silver light rose around Di Mingtian. At the same time, silver light appeared around Yan Jiushi and Ying Chenjiang. In an instant, the 3 figures disappeared at the same time. Chapter 741. In the wilderness, the shocking battle had ended. Heaven and earth were still shaking. The ancient road had collapsed. Thousands of miles of turbulence and sand were flying everywhere. Ningchen looked at the 3 people who had disappeared and didn't stop them. This Di Mingtian was extraordinary and difficult to injure in a short time. There was no need to continue fighting. More importantly, the masters of those star fields had been watching him. Now that someone who could threaten them had appeared, he was happy to see it happen. The blood mist gathered and the sword disappeared. Ning Chen's white fan reappeared. He restrained his aura and walked forward. 100 miles away, Hong Wulei saw the figure in the distance and immediately went to greet him. Seeing the worried look, Ning Chen smiled and said, "I'm fine." Ruo she also walked up with a gentle smile on her face. "Let's go. Let's continue," Ning Chen said softly. "N." The two nodded and walked forward, one on the left and one on the right. Not far away, Ji Yuqing looked at the man in front of her with a complicated expression. The battle of the ancient road, the competition of kings, it was really funny. The real geniuses, such as Bai Yujing, the former 9th disciple of Ma's sect, and the young man in silver just now, were much stronger than the younger generation. Compared to the strongest in this part of the starry sky, they were probably not inferior. "Miss Ji, let's continue," Ning Chen reminded her softly when they passed each other. The smile on his face was still the same, without any arrogance. There was only peace and tranquility. The cold wind blew and sand filled the air. His clean white clothes were not stained by a trace of dust. He was like a knowing destiny state cultivator, fighting in the filth, but his heart had never changed. The road of cultivation was originally thought to be difficult. Those with peerless talent would undoubtedly have a better starting point. Knowing destiny state cultivators were not the chosen ones. They could only rely on themselves, step by step, to overcome thousands of disasters. Ji Yuqing turned around and looked at the former. A moment later, she stepped forward and followed. "Master Bai, can 100 years of cultivation really reach your level?" Ji Yuqing asked softly. "Is it important?" Ning Chen looked away and asked, "Who doesn't dream of becoming the world's #1 martial artist?" Ji Yuqing sighed softly. Although it was only a childhood dream, there was no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. Since she wanted to learn martial arts, how could she not compete with the strongest cultivators in the world? A faint smile appeared on Ning Chen's face. "In truth, other than the curiosity I had when I first started learning martial arts, I don't have much interest in martial arts. I won't hide it from you, Miss Ji. Focusing too much on improving your cultivation will only bring you harm. With your talent, you'll sooner or later become a supreme expert whose name will shake the starry sky. As for my cultivation path, I've long since overdrafted my life's potential. I think that Mo Gate's 9th son isn't much better off." Ji Yuqing was shocked, her eyes filled with disbelief. "How could this be?" Ning Chen smiled and said, "I don't think anyone would joke about this kind of thing. Miss Ji, all of you are truly favored by the heavens, so there's no need to belittle yourselves. Sooner or later, all of you will welcome your most glorious era." "Young Master Bai really knows how to comfort people," Ji Yuqing said softly with a smile on her face. On the side, Ruo she gently smiled. She believed that there was no woman in this world that the young master couldn't handle, although he was also a fool when it came to relationships. Hong Wulei reached out and tugged at the clothes of the woman next to her with a trace of doubt in her eyes. "Silly girl," Ruo she whispered and transmitted her voice. "If the young master wants to break through to the immortal treading realm, he must obtain the cultivation method of the divine scroll. However, the young master is kind and unwilling to take it by force, so he can only become friends with Miss Jing. It's always easier to discuss things between friends than strangers. To be honest, the young master is indeed not particularly enlightened when it comes to personal relationships. However, when it comes to the ability to cheer a woman up, no one would dare to be ranked first. Between people, sincerity is more useful than any flowery words. Women are very attentive and sensitive to this feeling. Most of the time, the young master does seem to be like a block of wood. However, he always cherishes and treats the people around him with sincerity. There aren't so many fools in this world, and not all women are fools with long hair and short knowledge. They can see clearly whether it's true or false. In the past, Empress Zhangsun and Qing Ning had seen countless conspiracies in the palace. This was the reason why they trusted the young master, who was still a little eunuch. The young master is smart enough, smarter than everyone in the world. However, the young master never uses his schemes on the people around him. She could see that the young master was really trying to become friends with Miss Qing along the way. It wasn't just to use her. Otherwise, with the young master's ability and means, he would have already obtained the divine scroll. On the road, after a big battle, the smile on Ji Yuqing's face became more and more real. She knew very well that when a person's strength reached a certain level, there was no need to scheme. If the young man around her had any ulterior motives, she wouldn't even have a chance to resist. Young Masterby, with your strength, there is almost no place in the world you can't go. Why did you come to this ancient road to bully us martial juniors? Ji Yuqing chuckled. Miss Ji is joking. Ning Chen whispered and honestly said, I need the time restriction, so I have to come. Time restriction? A trace of surprise flashed through Ji Yuqing's eyes when she heard this. Although the 3 divine prohibitions were profound, they were difficult to be understood by humans. Even if one could learn the surface, it would take a lot of time and energy, which was not a good thing for cultivators. The time restriction, execution immortal, and yellow springs were called divine restrictions because if one wanted to truly control them, they needed divine guidance. There is no one on this ancient road who can stop the young master. Yuqing will quietly wait for the young master to open the ancient battlefield and fulfill his wish. Ji Yuqing sincerely said. Thank you for the auspicious words. What about Miss Ji? With the Ji family's background, why did you come all the way here to take the risk? Ning Chen asked. I originally wanted to verify the things I learned over the years, but I didn't expect to be defeated by the young master. Ji Yuqing smiled. Sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I'll be more careful next time. Ning Chen said seriously. While the two were chatting, Ruo Shi and Hong Wulei deliberately slowed down and walked behind the two, quietly exchanging glances. Hong Wulei's mind was a little simple and didn't think too much. In any case, everything the young master did was right. She just needed to follow. Ruo Shi kept smiling. Since the death of Zhang Sun, no one dared to interfere with the young master's life. She was just a servant. She could bully the young master, but she didn't dare to talk about such a big matter. She really hoped that there would be someone by the young master's side who cared about him. As for who this person was, it didn't matter. If this Ji Yuqing had such ability, she would definitely agree. Feeling the gaze of the girl behind him, Ning Chen turned around and saw through the meaning of her smile at a glance. Without saying anything, he raised his hand and knocked the girl's forehead. Ruo Shi cried out in pain and rubbed her forehead in dissatisfaction. She didn't dare to laugh again. Seeing this, Hong Wulei covered her mouth and secretly laughed. She knew it, the young master was so smart. Laughing at him behind his back would definitely not end well. What's wrong? Ji Yuqing didn't understand what was going on and was puzzled. It's nothing. This girl has dirt on her forehead. I'm just brushing it off for her. Ning Chen said in a bad mood. A new girl really isn't as good as the one who has been following the young master. Ruo Shi complained softly. Ning Chen raised his hand again. Seeing this, Ruo Shi was immediately frightened and didn't dare to say anything. Young Master Bai's luck with women is not shallow. The two girls he took in are not only beautiful but also have extraordinary strength. I wonder how many people would be envious of them. Ji Yuqing smiled. Ning Chen chuckled. Miss Ji really thinks highly of these two girls. Wulei is fine since I watched her grow up. Her temperament is simple. As for Ruo Shi, she even dares to make fun of her young master. She really needs to be taught a lesson. If there are too many restrictions, one will lose their nature. Young Master Bai should know this truth. Ji Yuqing shook her head. Ning Chen smiled softly. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly stopped and looked back. They're finally here. Thousands of miles behind, in the ruins of the battle, above the collapsed ancient road, space swirled and 3 figures walked out. They were all powerhouses of the star field, and the surrounding world shook under the pressure. What a terrifying battle, Venerable Ing Qiong said as he looked at the completely destroyed section of the ancient road. This aura, it's those people. But who were the ones fighting with them? The Venerables were puzzled. Venerable Ziwei was silent. Originally, the biggest suspect was Mo Gate's 9th son, but they had seen him die in battle and fall into the magma. It couldn't be him. Could it be related to Sky Pillar's sudden collapse? Venerable In Cheong reminded. It's not impossible. Venerable Ziwei nodded and said, Did you find out who left their names on Sky Pillar in the end? Lu Ruoxi, Hongwulei, Jiyuqing, and one more person. They disappeared with Sky Pillar before their names could reach the Hall of Venerables. Venerable In Cheong replied. It's them again. Upon hearing their names, Supremacy Ziwei frowned slightly. Everything that had happened recently was definitely related to these women. It was most likely not just a coincidence. 3,000 miles away, Ning Chen retracted his gaze and looked at the woman beside him. He smiled and said, Miss Ji, I'll have to ask for your help this time. Jiyuqing understood and asked, You don't want to expose your strength in front of the Star Venerables? One must always be on guard against others, right? Ning Chen said seriously. Jiyuqing nodded and said, Sir, I saved Yuqing's life. Yuqing naturally won't refuse such a small matter. Thank you, Ms. Ji. Ning Chen replied. Immediately, he took half a step back and stood behind the former. At this moment, 3 powerful auras rushed over from afar. An oppressive atmosphere spread between heaven and earth, causing the stars to lose their color. Ji family's Yuqing respectfully welcomes the 3 venerables. Seeing the 3 of them, Jiyuqing bowed respectfully as a junior and said calmly. Venerable Ziwei looked at the 4 people in front of him and narrowed his eyes. In the next moment he noticed the only man among the 4. You, what's your name? Venerable Ziwei asked indifferently. By Yujing. Ning Chen raised his head, the corners of his mouth slightly curved as he replied. Chapter 742. The cold night was bleak, the winter wind was bleak, and a cold moon hung high in the sky. Under the moon, the heavy atmosphere spread and stagnated for 10 miles. 3 powerhouses of the star field appeared at the same time, standing in the void to stop Knowing Destiny's group. This one is by Yujing. Dressed in plain clothes, Ning Chen bowed. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, but his expression was calm. By Yujing. Crepe Myrtle, All Heaven, and In Cheong's expressions froze. What a strange name, they had never heard of it. Hongwulei took half a step forward and looked at the 3, quiet and indifferent. Crepe Myrtle's eyes narrowed. Red King's people? 3 venerables, what are your orders? We are in a hurry, Jiyuqing said. Where were you during the battle just now? The All Heaven venerables asked. Watching from outside, Jiyuqing replied. Did you see who was fighting? The All Heaven venerables continued to ask. I saw, but the battle was covered by the power of the laws. I couldn't see their faces, Jiyuqing said lightly. The All Heaven venerables frowned slightly. If the Ji family's girl wasn't lying, then someone who could use the power of the laws to hide from them was at least a true boundary cultivator. Venerables, can we go now? Jiyuqing calmly asked. The All Heaven venerables nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Let's go. Jiyuqing turned around and spoke softly. Then she started walking forward. Hongwulei and Ruoxi exchanged a glance and walked forward together. At the back, Ning Chen followed with an indifferent expression. The moment he passed by, a sneer flashed in his eyes and disappeared in an instant. Looking at the 4's departing figures, Crepe Myrtle's frown deepened. His intuition told him that there must be something wrong with these people, but he couldn't figure out the reason. That young man may not be simple, In Cheong reminded. Did you see anything? Crepe Myrtle asked. No. In Cheong shook his head. It's because he's too ordinary that I feel something is wrong. Red King and Jiyuqing have always been alone, so it's strange for them to be together. But this young man can follow them, so he shouldn't be so ordinary. Perhaps he chose to side with the 2 kings because he was too weak, said the All Heavens venerables. Only one person will be able to reach the end of this path. Trust is the most undesirable thing. I'm sure these people understand that, said Reverend Myrtlestar. That's the logic. However, no matter how extraordinary that child is, it's impossible for him to have fought with those mysterious experts. The difference in strength is too great. It's impossible for an exception like Mo Gate's 9th son to appear again, said the sovereign. Crepe Myrtle and In Cheong nodded. That was indeed the case. They did not want to care about the schemes and schemes on the ancient road, nor did they have the energy to do so. Who would die and who would live would be left to fate. The void swirled, and the three figures faded away, disappearing in an instant. 5 kilometers away, Ningchen stopped and turned around to look behind him. A cold smile flashed on his face once more. All previous favors and grudges would be repaid in the future. Master Bai, Jiuqing called. What happened? Ningchen's expression returned to normal as he said with a smile. We're about to reach Starfall Sky City. When I came here, I heard from the elders that the ancient road ends here. There's no road behind us. We need to be careful, Jiuqing said seriously. Thank you for the reminder. Ningchen nodded and looked into the distance. It seemed that the true test of the ancient road was about to begin. There were still 3 cities left. If there was no road behind them, then Starfall Sky City might be the last remaining city. Rua Shi Wule, from now on, you're not allowed to leave my side, Ningchen said seriously. Rua Shi and Hong Wule nodded. 4,000 kilometers away, a majestic city was located. 9 enforcers stood in the air, using a secret method to repair the broken ancient road. However, it was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It was difficult to play a big role. Half a day later, the 4 of them walked over. Looking at the turbulent space in front of them, their expressions all became solemn. Above the void, the 9 enforcers did not say a word and did not interfere in the slightest. Let's go, Ningchen said calmly as he stepped into the spatial turbulence. Rua Shi and Hong Wule followed without hesitation. Jiuqing hesitated for a moment, but after a moment, she sighed inwardly and followed. The turbulent space swept past. Not long after, the 4 figures disappeared without a trace. 14 days later, outside Starfall Sky City, a beautiful figure in green walked over. Her face was soft and beautiful, her long hair fluttered in the wind. Her Buddha nature was smooth, rare in the world. The green figure entered the turbulent space and gradually disappeared. Time passed by on the ancient road. Day after day, more and more young powerhouses walked into Starfall Sky City. In the end, they chose to enter the turbulent space. 7 months passed in the blink of an eye. At the end of the turbulent space, no one walked out. In the Hall of Venerables, the Venerables appeared with a solemn expression. It had been too long. Something was not right. Everyone, these young people may have encountered some danger in the turbulent space. Who has time, please take a trip, Venerable Sky Mist said seriously. The immortal slaying and immortal trapping swords have not been found yet. The Waning Moon Tower Master and I can't leave for the time being, Venerable Lingshu said first. I, Myriad Heavens, and Ing Qiong are tracking the whereabouts of the 3 mysterious powerhouses. We can't leave for a while, Venerable Ziwei said. What about you, Divine Armament? Venerable Sky Mist asked. My apologies, Divine Armament said calmly. My adopted daughter is at a critical juncture in her breakthrough. I can't leave either. The Venerables were silent for a moment. But then a voice rang out. I'll do it. When the Venerables heard that, they looked over at the person who had spoken, their eyes flickering with surprise. Venerable Moon? She had actually agreed to help. She had never been interested in the ancient battlefield, and had rarely even attended the Hall of Venerables. Venerable Moon, Venerable Sky Mist said seriously. These young people are very important, and it's highly likely that the Heaven's Sun is among them. We absolutely can't let them die in the turbulent space. Please. I'll bring them out, Venerable Moon said coolly. Reverend Baiyu said indifferently. Then he disappeared from the hall. In Starfall Sky City, the air rippled as a woman in a white robe appeared. As soon as she appeared, the 9 executors of the ancient road dropped to their knees. Our respects, Venerable Moon. Rise, Venerable Moon said. Venerable Moon said, looking calmly at the turbulent space up ahead. A moment later, he stepped inside. The turbulent space was boundless, and spatial tempests were everywhere. Danger lurked everywhere, and no one dared to be careless. For people were walking through the turbulent space, led by a plain-robed man. He waved his white fan, which was surrounded by white flames that swept away the turbulent space. As Ji Yuqing looked at the man leading the way, a look of confusion flickered in her eyes. For some reason, she got the feeling that this person was very familiar with the turbulent space and didn't seem nervous at all. Swish! A beam of silver light slashed through the air toward the three people behind them. Ningchen spun the Li flame of the clear sun, causing it to transform into a sword that shattered the turbulent space. "Miss Ji, do you have some questions?" Ningchen asked with a smile. "Young Sir Bai, have you always been this smart?" Ji Yuqing sighed. "You can even tell what people are thinking." "Not really." Ningchen smiled and shook his head. "There are also people I don't understand. It's just that your questions are written all over your face. It's hard for me not to see it. Since young Sir Bai can tell, Yuqing won't hide it any longer. With young Sir's familiarity with the turbulent space, it doesn't seem as simple as just understanding it." Ji Yuqing voiced her question. "I have indeed seen similar turbulent space in the past." Ningchen didn't conceal anything and spoke truthfully. "At that time, I was still weak and couldn't resist the spatial turbulence, so I could only be careful with every step I took. After being trapped within it for a long time, I gradually became slightly familiar with it." Ningchen waved his hand to disperse the tempests and smiled. "Miss Ji, if you have any questions, you can ask them directly. After knowing each other for so long, we should be considered friends. It's too tiring for friends to be so careful all the time." "Friends?" Ji Yuqing smiled and said, "To be able to become friends with a heavenly genius like young Sir, Yuqing is extremely honored. Can young Sir answer my questions? Why does young Sir know so much, and why your strength far surpasses ours? Is it just because you overdraft your life potential?" "I wouldn't dare to call myself a heavenly genius." Ningchen shook his head. "I wasn't born with such knowledge. After suffering, I naturally remember it clearly." "Miss Ji, you can call me Yuqing," Ji Yuqing said softly. Ningchen nodded. "Miss Yuqing, I won't hide it from you. I've cultivated heavenly book martial arts, so my foundation will be strengthened to a certain extent. As for battle strength, it's very difficult to describe it in a few words." Ningchen paused for a moment, then continued, "In battle, the most important things are undoubtedly experience and cultivation. Cultivation is determined by heaven, and talent is crucial. However, experience can only be tempered. The closer it is to a life or death situation, the clearer this memory will be. This is determined by people, and talent doesn't have much of an effect. Miss Ji was born in a family that has been passed down for generations. Even if you want to temper yourself, you can't truly experience life or death situations. In the end, there is still a difference between tempering yourself and a true life or death battle." Hearing the former's words, Ji Yuqing fell silent. After a long time, she asked softly, "Young Sir, if you don't hold back, how many moves can I last against you?" Ningchen hesitated for a moment, but in the end he still answered honestly, "If it's an arena match, I can't do anything to you within 100 moves. However, if it's a life or death battle, you will die within 10 moves." To the side, Hongwule and Ruo she gently tugged at the former's clothes. Their eyes flashed with worry. "Young Sir's words are too direct, it will hurt. Yuqing is a woman after all, and a heavenly genius at that. These words are too cruel." In the rear, Ji Yuqing's expression darkened. After cultivating for so many years, she was told she couldn't even last 10 moves. It really wasn't a good thing. In the past, she only focused on cultivation. She never thought the gap in battle experience would have such a big impact. Chapter 743. Time and space were turbulent, storms were howling, and time and space were intertwined. Every step was dangerous, and no one dared to be careless. In the turbulence, thousands of young experts from various star zones were trapped, and it was difficult for them to escape. In the 8th month, outside Meteor Sky City, the sand was in a mess, and in the wind, 3 figures walked over. Their auras were unusually strong, and they covered the sky and the moon. In the city, the 9 enforcers sensed it, and their expressions changed. "Leave no one alive," Di Mingtian said calmly. "Yes." Yan Jiushi and Ing Chenjiang accepted the order respectfully, and they flew toward the city. In the next moment, the shocking sound of a great battle rang out, and the whole meteor sky city shook. Killing intent filled the sky. Go and inform the star venerables. In the killing trap, our enforcer shouted anxiously. It's too late. None of you can leave today. Yan Jiushi said coldly, and evil energy spread out from him like waves, covering 100 miles. Outside Meteor Sky City, Di Mingtian walked to the turbulence and looked ahead. After a while, he slowly raised his right hand. In an instant, the sky above Meteor Sky City was covered by dark clouds, and thunder rolled violently. A terrifying pressure descended and kept rising. Forbidden Dark Seal, Doomsday Imperial Order. It was a forbidden technique, Doomsday setting off. Around Di Mingtian, silver light shot into the sky, commanding the world. The thunderclouds sensed it, and 10,000 heavenly thunders struck down. Endless destructive power instantly drowned the turbulence in front of them. In the Doomsday Calamity, the world changed drastically in the turbulence, and the violent spatial power roared. Hundreds of young experts were torn to pieces before they could react. Boom! Outside the turbulence, 10,000 thunders struck down again, and the glaring light cut through the night, illuminating the entire ancient road as bright as day. In the turbulence, more and more people were swallowed by the violent spatial power. Blood and bones were everywhere, and death became the only tone. Sword technique, ultimate heaven. At this moment, an extremely dazzling sword light shot into the sky from the turbulence, and the brilliant Milky Way fell from the sky. In front of the turbulence, Di Mingtian saw it, and he turned his palm to the sky. The moment his palm and sword met, a terrifying aftershock spread out, and the mountains within 1,000 miles collapsed. It was like the end of the world. This is... In the turbulence, the figure in green clothes shook, and she looked at the sky. It's him. Sword art, divine seal. After one sword strike, another sword strike rose. Absolute sword pressure surged, slaying immortals and sealing gods. Di Mingtian narrowed his eyes and formed a seal with his hands. Silver light shone brightly and a protective shield spread out to block the sword power. With a hong sound, the two powerful moves collided once again. The heavy air pressure surged. This was a battle of the pinnacle. Gods and ghosts would be frightened. Even though they were separated by an unknown amount of space, their sword might was shocking even before they could see each other. In the chaotic flow of time and space, Bai Yi stood there quietly. The aura of the sword in her hand curled up, and the blood-colored runes spread out along the sword blade. Specks of red light shone on the sword. This was a sword that coexisted with the same body. It had been nurtured for 30 years, and there was only one sword on the sword. Watching from a close distance, Ji Yuqing could feel the terrifying cultivation of the young man in front of her. Behind them, Ruoshi was quietly waiting. Her beautiful eyes were looking at her young master with a gentle gaze. For more than 30 years, young master had never rested for a moment. Including the time spent cultivating in the Taoye's stomach, young master had actually lived for close to 100 years. She had seen with her own eyes how much the young master had suffered on this long road. For him to be where he was today, the heavens were deliberately making things difficult for him. Her young master had said that the happiest thing in the world was to be rewarded with hard work. If she encountered it, she must not miss it. She didn't know how these descendants of aristocratic families walked their path, but she knew that her young master's path was different from theirs. Starfall Sky City. Bang, 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 bang. Several figures fell to the ground, splashing up sand and dust. Yan Jiushi and Ing Chenjiang walked out. They looked at the silver-robed figure in front of the space-time turbulence and said respectfully, "Your Highness, it's all settled." Di Mingtian nodded. Just as he was about to speak, he frowned slightly. It's finally here. In the distance, the moonlight spread, dispersing the dark clouds in the sky. In the moonlight, a woman in a moon-white dress walked over. Her aura covered the sky and shook everything. Let's go. Di Mingtian withdrew his mind and said. Immediately, he stepped into the space-time turbulence. Yan Jiushi and Ying Qianjiang followed behind. In an instant, they disappeared. In the sky, the woman in a moon-white dress landed. She looked at the 9 law enforcers who died in the battle in the city. Her eyes flashed. Am I too late? After pondering for a moment, Reverend Yu waved his hand to disperse the dust and sand in the sky. He then stepped into the space-time turbulence outside the city. In the space-time turbulence, Ning Chen's body was covered in red light. The sword returned to his body, and his aura was restrained. Let's continue. Ning Chen turned around, glanced at the 3 and smiled. Ji Yuqing, Hong Wulei, and Ruo Shi nodded and continued to follow. On the other side of the turbulence, Di Mingtian walked step by step. His divine sense swept out, looking for traces of swordsmen. Let's go separately. Eliminate all the people trapped in this space-time turbulence. The 2 accepted the order and left. Outside the space-time turbulence, the moon set and the sun rose. Day after day passed. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. In the turbulence, no one could walk out. Young master, have you found a way out? On the way, Ruo Shi asked softly. These days, her young master had obviously sped up. He seemed to know how to get out. I have some ideas. Ning Chen nodded. Di Mingtian's attack before can be considered to have given us a direction. He attacked in Starfall Sky City, so we just need to go in the opposite direction. However, the space-time turbulence is very unstable. While I can still grasp the direction, we need to find a way out quickly. Ruo Shi and Ji Yuqing looked at each other. How could they not notice such a simple truth? Young master's intelligence and wisdom are really admirable. Ji Yuqing praised. Miss Yuqing is too kind. I can think of such a small thing with just a little bit of attention. Ning Chen responded and quickened his pace. He deliberately left his aura outside when he fought with Di Mingtian. However, this aura couldn't last long and would soon disappear. Now, every step he took was a higher chance of getting out. At the same time, a massacre began in the turbulence. 2 true realm powerhouses took advantage of the space-time turbulence to obscure the heavens and continuously slaughtered the young powerhouses on the ancient road. In just half a month, hundreds of people had fallen. Bang! Time and space intersected, and the 2 auras collided. The azure divine spear in the woman's hand was like a dragon breaking through the clouds, breaking through the evil. With a loud tremor, the woman's figure faded away. Time and space were distorted, and she disappeared. You can't leave. Yan Jiushi coldly snorted. Looking at the turbulence around him, he continued to walk forward. Not long after, the staggered space-time intersected again. The woman frowned slightly, and a lotus bloomed around her. Buddha energy poured into her body, and she pushed her cultivation to the peak. The azure divine spear trembled, and a powerful aura rose rapidly. With the help of a secret technique, the pressure was several times stronger than before. Knowing that there were many variables in the space-time turbulence, Yan Jiushi didn't want to fight for a long time. He raised his hand and used his ultimate move. Evil energy spread out, and he flipped his palm towards the woman in front of him. Heavenly Dragon breaks the city. The azure divine spear in the woman's hand turned into a dragon, and the Buddha energy increased its power to break through evil and kill demons. The 2 moves collided, and the space-time turbulence attacked again. The 2 separated, and a smear of blood spilled. In an instant, they disappeared without a trace. Yan Jiushi's expression turned cold after seeing that the 2 moves didn't take her life. This woman wasn't weak, and she wasn't any weaker than those kings. However, he was sure that there wasn't such a woman among the 9 kings. From the looks of it, there should still be many hidden experts on this ancient road. His strength was already known by the woman just now. No matter what, this woman couldn't be left alive. A spatial storm swept past, and on the other side of the turbulence, the woman appeared. Her right hand was holding the spear, and blood was dripping down, dyeing the spear red. With a ripping sound, the woman tore her skirt and tied it to her right hand. Her eyes flashed. Without a doubt, the person who attacked was at least a half-step true realm expert, or even a true realm expert. Since when was there such an expert on the ancient road? Furthermore, who was the person who fought against Ningchen earlier? She couldn't figure out all these questions, so she gathered her thoughts and quickened her pace, walking forward. At the same time, Reverend Baiyu was moving forward rapidly, passing through layers of turbulence. As soon as he saw it, an illusory figure in silver clothes flashed and disappeared in an instant. Reverend Baiyu furrowed his brows. He changed his direction and chased after the figure. In the turbulent space, Di Mingtian showed a cold smile. A true realm star venerable came so quickly. Dream summoning token. After chasing for a long time, Reverend Baiyu turned his right hand, and a beam of flowing light shot out, heading toward Di Mingtian. The space intertwined, and the dream summoning token flew out, attacking the silver-clothed figure in front of him. Di Mingtian's eyes narrowed. Air currents surged around him, and the silver light shone brightly, blocking the token. With a violent tremor, the space collapsed. Reverend Baiyu walked out of the turbulence in a white dress. He didn't say anything, and his body flashed. Is this how the star venerables of the human realm beyond heaven treat their guests? Di Mingtian's face turned cold. He didn't dodge, but raised his right hand to block the might of the true realm expert. The two experts fought head-on, and turbulence surged. Reverend Baiyu's eyes became grave. He increased the power of his palm and started the fight. Who are you? Why did you come to the ancient road? Reverend Baiyu asked coldly. You don't need to know who we are. We came here to take back what belongs to our clan, Di Mingtian said calmly. You are not a human. Reverend Baiyu's face turned colder. He didn't ask any more questions. He took a step forward and released all his aura. You want to take my life alone? Are you too confident, or are you just stupid? Di Mingtian said coldly. He opened his eyes, and a vague aura appeared. The turbulence in the surrounding space collapsed, and no one could get close to him. The two experts started fighting in a single step. They didn't test each other, and their first move was a destructive one. The heavenly might was vast, and the rumbling shook the starry sky. Ningchen, who was far away, stopped. He felt the aura of the two experts fighting, and he squinted his eyes. Di Mingtian still has star venerables. Chapter 744. Di Mingtian and Baiyu the Venerable exchanged blows for the first time. Space and time were in a mess as the shockwaves passed by. This was a battle of the pinnacle. It was so intense that it was too much for the eyes to take in. Space and time were in a mess around the two. As the battle continued, the power of the chaotic space became stronger and stronger. The destructive power engulfed everything. In the distance, Ningchen felt the shockwaves of the battle coming from the chaotic space and time. His eyes flashed. Di Mingtian and the Venerables had finally started fighting. From now on, the show was about to begin. Sword technique, returning to truth. The sword intense sword and broke through space. It was dazzling as it passed through countless layers of space and time. It chased after the aura of the battle and entered the chaotic space. In the battle, Di Mingtian's expression suddenly froze. He flipped his left palm and blocked the danger coming from afar. In the next moment, a dazzling sword light rushed over. It was extremely powerful and cut open all the chaotic space in its way. With a boom, the sword and palm collided. The blood-red sword light spun rapidly. The sharp and concentrated sword had returned to its original state. Its power was earth-shattering and overwhelming. Reverend Baiyu was shocked, but he quickly came to his senses. He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Su Mo. He condensed Yuan Qi with his slender hand and slapped at Su Mo's heart. Do you think it's that easy? Di Mingtian's eyes turned cold. He raised his right palm. Vigorous True Yuan rose and blocked the fatal palm. The three of them fought. Di Mingtian blocked the two attacks with his palms. The true qi in his body surged and he took half a step back. After a single move, Ningchen sheathed his sword, and a wisp of a cold arc appeared on the corners of his mouth. He didn't attack again. In the battle, Di Mingtian was fighting Baiyu. Every move was shocking. However, with the previous attack, he had to pay attention to it. He did not know when the sword light would appear. 10 moves, 100 moves. Di Mingtian, who had held back a little, gradually fell into a disadvantage. He flipped his palm and shook off the battle. His cold eyes looked at the other side of the boundless space. He did not attack, but it was more terrifying than attacking. This was the most terrifying pincer attack in the world. 9 Rainbow Song. The situation had taken a turn for the better. Reverend Moon flipped her delicate hand, and the sky was filled with rainbows. The sound of the great Tao was heard, and it was intangible. A song sealed the sky. The extreme mystic sound came, and the sound waves spread out like raging waves. Di Mingtian's expression turned serious, and he forcefully circulated his true essence, using the illusory world to block the mystic sound. Di Mingtian's lips turned red as he took another half-step back. Even with his supreme cultivation, he could not withstand the extreme Xianyin and was injured for the first time. Surrounded by tigers and wolves, the situation was not in his favor. Di Mingtian did not want to continue fighting. Silver light flashed around him, and he disappeared into the space-time turbulence. Reverend Moon immediately chased after him and disappeared into the turbulence. On the other side of the battlefield, Yan Jiushi was trying to kill the woman in green. He unleashed his true realm cultivation and passed through the space-time turbulence to kill the King Realm expert. The green-robed woman's green divine spear was filled with a lotus aura. The Buddha energy destroyed the evil, and she managed to survive in the midst of danger. They had fought for an unknown number of rounds. With the aid of the turbulence, the azure-clothed woman constantly shifted her position. Although she was injured, she managed to escape from the former's hands time and time again. Yan Jiushi's expression became more and more gloomy, and his patience was running out. His figure flashed through the boundary of space, looking for the woman's trace. "Young master, what are you waiting for?" In the space-time turbulence, she looked at the figure in front of her and asked in confusion. "Nothing." Ningchen came back to his senses and gently shook his head. A strange light flashed in his eyes. Was it an illusion? He kept feeling that someone familiar had come. If it was not Mu Qianshang and the others, who could it be? "Young Master Bai, let's continue." Ji Yuqing stepped forward and reminded. "Okay." Ningchen nodded and stepped forward. 2 days later, at the end of the space-time turbulence, where the space intersected, a violent airflow was spinning, blocking the path ahead. The 4 walked over and stopped in front of the turbulence. Ji Yuqing and Hong Wulei's expressions were solemn. Such a terrifying turbulence was not something an emptiness realm expert could pass through. Hong Wulei looked at the young master beside him. Now, he could only let the young master take action. "You guys step back." Ningchen whispered and immediately clenched his right hand. In the midst of the blood mist, a divine sword appeared. His bloodline was symbiotic, and an incomparably powerful sword pressure swept out. With a swing of the sword light broke through the sky. In the midst of the bloody light, the turbulence collapsed. A huge black hole more than 100 feet wide appeared and directly disappeared 100 miles away. "Go!" The wind and snow swept over. Ningchen moved and quickly rushed forward with the 3 people. Not long after, the end of the turbulence was in sight. Ningchen was just about to take the 3 people out when his expression changed. But behind him, a familiar aura came through the chaotic space again. It was so clear, so unforgettable, and so unforgettable. "You guys go first." Without time to say more, Ningchen flipped his palm and sent the 3 people out of the turbulence. Then he turned around and returned. "Young master," she anxiously called out. However, the whistling turbulence covered everything and it was difficult to distinguish. "Why did young Master Bai go back?" Ji Yuqing's eyes flashed and asked. "I don't know." She shook her head worriedly. There must be something important for young Master to leave in such a hurry. But what could be more important than winning this competition? In the turbulence of time and space, Su Yi quickly passed through. The sword in her hand slashed and cut through all obstacles. "You must wait for me." Ning Chen's pace became faster and faster. He no longer cared about hiding his aura. Using all his strength and the phoenix source, he disappeared into the turbulence in a flash. In the 3 battles, the sound of battle was deafening. Ing Chenjiang raised his hand and broke the neck of a young expert. He stepped away and continued to look for the next target. The shattered corpse was torn apart by the turbulence of space. Flesh and bones flew everywhere. It was extremely miserable. In another battle, Di Mingtian and Reverend Baiyu were fighting again. They were both true realm experts. In the turbulence of time and space, no one could do anything to the other. In the third battle, Yan Jiushi forced the blue-clothed woman to kill. He chased her all the way. The blue-clothed woman's blood-stained dress was abnormally dazzling. Every time they met, the blue-clothed woman didn't stay to fight. However, the difference in cultivation couldn't be made up for. Her injuries accumulated and she gradually found it hard to maintain her cultivation. Just at this moment, within the turbulence, a brilliant light flickered and an extremely charming and beautiful figure appeared. She was dressed in pink and her fine black hair hung down. Her charming appearance was somewhat cold and somewhat charming. Her appearance was completely different, and it was difficult to recognize her. Wisdom King AI Ran had appeared. HM? Yan Jioshi's expression became serious as he looked at the newcomer. You can't touch her. AI Ran spoke softly. Her true yuan surged. With every step she took, the Buddhist will behind her turned a bit redder. The Buddhist lady had turned into a demon. Her eyes were blood red. Buddha and demon were one. They were the most extreme opposites. Buddha Mountain, which had been changing for 1,000 years, once again displayed a terrifying ability. A pair of blood-red eyes opened and a blood-red wave swept out. Wisdom King AI ran. The blue-clothed woman looked at the newcomer and said calmly, "You shouldn't have come here." Since we're both from the Buddhist sect, AI Ran naturally can't just sit by and watch. Wisdom King AI Ran's lips curled up in a beautiful arc as she softly replied. You and I aren't his match even if we work together. Why throw away your life for no reason? If something happens to you, this ancient path will turn into hell. My Buddha is merciful and will naturally stop him. Wisdom King AI Ran smiled. Are you done? If you are, then let's go. Yan Jiushi snorted coldly as he flipped his palms. His evil chi exploded with a thunderous rumble. Rolling waves roared out and swallowed everything. Buddha's 6 images. Lust confuses the void. AI Ran knew that the person in front of her wasn't an ordinary opponent. She formed hand seals and the surrounding devil yuan shook. Her slender hands glowed as she used one technique after another. Devil's 6 ashes, Brahma ghost annihilation. Her hands formed 2 techniques. The Bodhisattva of the Buddha and the Wisdom King of the Devil both attacked at the same time. Green myrtle lotus. On the other side, the blue-clothed woman also condensed her true yuan. Her heaven-cleansing lotus aura swept out and suppressed all evil. After the collision of the 3 extremes, there was a moment of silence. Soon after, there was a great terror that shook the heavens and the earth. The momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas instantly destroyed everything in the surroundings. Layer after layer of space collapsed and was swallowed by the roaring aftershocks. 2 beautiful figures flew out from the turbulence. After a few steps, they stopped and vomited a mouthful of blood that dyed their clothes red. Going against the flow and killing immortals was harder than ascending the heavens. How many people in the world could do it? The blue-clothed woman suppressed her injuries and stepped in front of AI Ran. There's no need to stay and throw away your life. None of you will be able to escape. Yan Jiushi waved his hand to disperse the shockwaves. He looked at the 2 with killing intent. AI Ran. The blue-clothed woman spoke once more. If we can't do it, AI Ran will have a way to leave. Wisdom King AI Ran's smile didn't fade. Her blood-red eyes became even more demonic as her devil yuan surged. The Buddha follows the devil path. How ironic! Yan Jiushi sneered and stepped forward. His evil aura spread across the 9 heavens as he slapped at the 2. AI Ran didn't dodge. She stepped forward, and her slender hand turned into the sharpest weapon in the world as she faced the attack. The blue-clothed woman's expression changed slightly. Her lotus aura changed, and she used all her Buddhist holy power. Suddenly, the blue divine spear's radiance soared into the sky. Evil, devil, and Buddha clashed. After one move, heaven and earth turned into chaos. It was an irreversible outcome. Red dyed their Buddhist robes red. To be able to last until now, you have impressed me. However, it's time to end this. Yen Jiushi stepped forward and shattered the Buddha and devil radiance. He condensed all his evil essence into one palm. The extreme evil could subdue Buddha, the extreme evil could subdue devil. Buddha and devil faced the same tribulation. Life was like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. If you dare to touch her, I will kill you for 9 lifetimes. At this moment, space collapsed. An angry and cold voice came. Before the person arrived, sword intent filled 100 miles. The next moment, AIE stepped out from the turbulence. Layers of space collapsed. Unable to withstand the anger of the person who came, they dissipated in the crisscrossing sword light. It's you! Yen Jiushi's expression changed. How could this be? Didn't he leave long ago? Not far away, the blue-clothed woman saw the person who came. A gentle smile flashed across her gentle face. He finally came. Sister Qing Ning, I'm sorry. I came late, said Ning Chen apologetically. You're not late. Help me vent my anger. Qing Ning chuckled and said. Chapter 745. Time and space were in chaos. Knowing destiny stepped through the realms, his body was surrounded by murderous intent. Yen Jiushi's expression changed. He immediately turned his palm and slapped at the incoming person. Evil chi spread out like waves. Knowing destiny waved his sword. Bloody light was dazzling. It had the power to split open the sky and cut the evil chi in half. A pool of blood splashed into time and space. Yen Jiushi's feet sank and his right knee fell to the ground. Since you dared to hurt her, leave your life behind. Ning Chen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His sword aura became heavier, suppressing the evil king. Blood dripped from the corner of Yen Jiushi's mouth. He concentrated his energy and slapped at the former. You're overestimating yourself. Ning Chen did not dodge the incoming attack. He slapped down with his left palm. Frost surged as he took the evil energy head-on. With a boom, their foundations clashed. The heavily injured Yen Jiushi's mouth was dyed red again. The blood in his body surged violently. 9 evils breaking sun palm. The situation was unfavorable. Yen Jiushi condensed his vast energy again. Suddenly, the evil chi roared like crazy waves. It broke through the sky and attacked the sun. Ning Chen snorted. He turned his palm and took in chi. He activated the life scroll. In an instant, time and space were frozen. The 2 palms clashed. The sky fell and the earth fell. The shocking power continued to spread and destroyed the incoming spatial turbulence. Evil Dragon Overture, life devours the sky. Yen Jiushi reused his evil weapon. The black spear was in his hand. The dragon's soul returned to his body. Demonic patterns circled around him. His aura rose again. The black spear light broke through the sky. The dragon roared in the sky. Its power multiplied as it attacked with all its might. It was a powerful move. Wherever the evil energy passed, ice and snow melted. Everything was destroyed. Sword technique, nothingness. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He waved his sword. The bloody light was extremely bright. It spread rapidly and swallowed everything in sight. With a boom, the 2 weapons clashed. The powerful sword pressure destroyed everything. The evil weapon flew out of Yen Jiushi's hand. Sword technique, divine seal. After the first sword, the next one came. The brilliant sword cut through time and space. It took a life. The tip of the sword pierced through his body. His eyes were filled with blood. The plain clothes that were close to him were reflected in his eyes. This was the last scene of his life. Yen Jiushi's eyes were filled with reluctance and regret. The moment we left our world, we were already prepared to lose everything. However, this moment is the proof of our value. At the moment of his death, Yen Jiushi unleashed all of his blood chi, which turned into a death restriction and sealed off the heaven and earth. He wanted to die together with the enemy before him. Sword style, remnant red. In the blink of an eye, a red light flashed, and the tip of the sword was sharp. You! Yen Jiosher's eyes were filled with shock when he saw the red-robed silhouette. The memories of the past came back to him. He was unwilling to accept it, but more importantly, he was filled with mockery. The heretic king fell to the ground with a thud. He didn't have time to tell the truth as the turbulence engulfed his body. Ning Chen's red clothes dissipated and he returned to his original body. He looked at the beautiful figure in green outside the battlefield. His usually calm face finally couldn't hide his emotions. Sister Qing Ning. Tears flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. He had fought for a lifetime, but all he could think of was the most ordinary days of his life. He could talk with his loved ones. It was so simple, yet so difficult. A gentle smile appeared on Qing Ning's face. She walked forward and raised a hand to caress his face. She said softly, "I still haven't seen you get married and have children on behalf of the Empress. You won't die so easily." Ning Chen didn't say anything. He walked forward and hugged the woman in front of him. Feeling that familiar warmth, the panic in his heart gradually calmed down. Qing Ning's expression became even gentler. She patted his back and said softly, "The wisdom monarch is still here. Aren't you going to greet him?" Only then did Ning Chen notice the seductive woman in a pink dress. He calmed himself down and let go of the person in his arms. He said, "Miss Erin, the wisdom monarch owes you a favor this time. To be able to make the world-renowned wisdom monarch owe me a favor, Erin has earned it." Erin Ming monarch smiled and replied, "Erin, Qing Ning will remember this favor. I won't say any more thanks. If there's anything in the future, I'll do my best to help," Qing Ning said seriously. The wisdom monarch's smile became even more seductive. She looked at the wisdom monarch and said, "Wisdom monarch, do you still remember what I said to you before?" "Miss said that we would meet again," Ning Chen replied. "Everyone says that the wisdom monarch is the crown of civil and military affairs. Today, I finally learned that after more than 10 years, young master still remembers what Erin said." "I'm impressed," the wisdom monarch smiled. "Miss Erin's talent and beauty are unparalleled. How could I not remember you?" Ning Chen said politely, "Young master, do you really mean what you said just now?" The wisdom monarch took a step forward and asked softly. Sensing the faint fragrance close by, Ning Chen subconsciously frowned. He then calmed down and said calmly, "I never go back on my words." Erin Ming monarch smiled and took a step back, saying, "Protect me until I become a supreme." "The fourth realm?" Ning Chen frowned as he spoke. "What, am I making things difficult for you?" The wisdom monarch smiled. "Miss Erin, do you really believe that there are fourth realm cultivators in the world?" Ning Chen said seriously. "Ho Tian, Xian Tian, treading immortal. Don't we all have doubts before we truly step into those realms? There's no end to the path of cultivation. We've always been frogs at the bottom of a well. All we can see is the sky in our hearts," the wisdom monarch replied. Ning Chen was silent for a long time before saying, "Miss Erin, do you really believe that I have the ability to protect you? To tell you the truth, I might very well be stuck at the peak realm for the rest of my life. I believe, young master, just like I believe that I can reach the fourth realm. Young master can already fight true realm cultivators. Just one more step and you'll be unrivaled. Erin has never misjudged people. Not in the past, and not in the future." Ning Chen sighed. "Since Miss Erin trusts me so much, I won't refuse. However, since you cultivate both Buddhism and the devil, you'll definitely have to sever one of them in the future." The wisdom monarch's smile faded. "If I become a Buddha, I'll be merciful. If I become a devil, I'll slaughter the world." Ning Chen was startled. For the first time, he felt a trace of fear towards Buddha Mountain's current Buddhist lady. He wasn't joking just now. He believed she could do what she said. Seeing the tense atmosphere, Qing Ning asked, "Ning Chen, where are Ruo Shi and Yin? I heard they came with you." Ning Chen recovered and replied, "Yin left the ancient path to the heavenly word planet's Li family village to fulfill her promise. Ruo Shi just left the space-time turbulence and is with Wulei and Jiyuqing." "Jiyuqing? Spirit Void's daughter?" Qing Ning narrowed her eyes. Ning Chen nodded. A strange light flashed in Qing Ning's eyes, but she didn't ask any more questions. Erin was also here, so some things were better left unasked. Let's go out first. Qing Ning gathered her thoughts. Ning Chen nodded slightly and walked in front, leading the two of them forward. At the same time, countless spaces away, the sound of battle was still endless. Reverend Baiyu blocked Di Mingtian's path, and every move he made was powerful enough to shake the sun and moon. Di Mingtian was seriously injured by Ji Ming's attack. He was gradually at a disadvantage in the battle. Reverend Baiyu saw this and his attacks became fiercer. He used all his cultivation, and his slender hands turned into 100 chains. Forbidden Dark Seal, 6 Sins Annihilation. Di Mingtian's injuries were getting worse, and he couldn't fight for a long time. He raised his right hand and forced his True Yuan. In an instant, the sun, moon, and stars appeared in his eyes. Space-time sank and everything was turned to ashes. Reverend Baiyu took the attack, and with a grunt, he retreated a few feet. Retreat! Di Mingtian took a step and quickly disappeared into the turbulence. Reverend Baiyu chased after him, but he had already lost track of him. This is troublesome. Reverend Baiyu's eyes flashed. This person's cultivation and combat strength were extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for the help of that swordsman, she wouldn't have been able to force him to this point. Now that he had escaped, the next time they met would be difficult to predict. After thinking for a moment, Reverend Baiyu collected her thoughts and disappeared. Half a month later, at the end of the turbulence, a sword light broke through the boundary of space. 3 figures walked out. When they saw the scene in front of them, they were shocked. In front of them, meteors kept falling. It was like the end of the world. There was no sign of life. Oh no! Ning Chen's divine sense swept over, and his heart sank. Ruo Shi and Wu Lei came out before them, but there was no trace of them. Could it be that they had encountered some danger? Don't worry too much. Those 2 girls aren't the same as before. They should be able to protect themselves. Moreover, the Clear Prince is with them. Since the Ji family allowed Ji Yuqing to come alone, she must have some special means that we don't know about, Qing Ning said softly. Yes. Ning Chen nodded, and his expression relaxed a little. However, he was still worried. He hoped that nothing would happen to those 2 girls. We're not far from the ancient battlefield. Let's hurry, said Empress Erin. Ning Chen and Qing Ning nodded, and the 3 of them entered the fire domain. As soon as they stepped in, waves of unbearable heat hit them from all directions. Seeing this, Ning Chen's expression turned serious. He stepped forward, and ice and snow covered the sky. Frost surged in the wind and waves, blocking the waves of fire. This place is harmful to your cultivation. Let's leave quickly, Ning Chen said. He waved his hand and a blood-red light rose. He opened a path with his sword. The wind and snow swept past, and the 3 of them immediately disappeared. They rushed into the depths of the fire domain. Not long after the 3 of them left, a moonlight rose in the turbulence behind them. A passage through the turbulence appeared, guiding the young experts out of their predicament. A few days later, several figures walked out. After being trapped for several months, they all looked exhausted. Thank you for saving us, Reverend. Everyone looked at the woman in the moonlight dress in the sky and bowed respectfully. Get up. Since you're all out, continue on your journey. The ancient battlefield is not far from here. However, the remaining part of the journey will be dangerous. It's not too late to leave now. Take care of yourselves. As she spoke, Reverend Baiyu's figure faded and merged into the void, disappearing without a trace. The young experts looked forward, and their expressions turned serious. It was not easy to get to this point, and they could not give up. No matter what, they had to find the ancient battlefield. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.